This meeting will come to order at 6:08. I call this meeting of the Vista High School District regular board meeting to order, and please stand for the flag salute. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. Indivisible, with liberty and roll call. Trustee Kelly here. Trustee Morocco
Present.
I am present, and there are two trustees who are not present right now. Trustee Smithfield is not present, and trustee Vargas is not present. All right, the next item on the agenda is, there was no reports to report out for closed session. We did not vote on anything. Next item is 4, approval of the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
So moved.
I second.
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Morocco. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda as is, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 3-0. Next is 5A, the district announcement, the superintendent's recognition.
All right, good evening, board members. It's a pleasure to be here with you at our regularly scheduled board meeting. In a moment, we're going to introduce our amazing new student board members. But before we do that, at the beginning of every school year and just about every month, not quite every month, we do recognize some of our amazing employees. As you know, we have over 2,000 employees in the school district, each of them providing amazing services to our students and to our families. We call them the stars of Vista, and I wanted to show a quick picture of them and then play a really quick video so you can all appreciate the great work that our folks do.
Congratulations to our September Stars of Excellence and Innovation.
Kylie Woods, Administrative Secretary and Physical Services. Tina Klein, Operations Supervisor in the Transportation Department.
Jennifer Miller, kindergarten teacher at Mission Meadows Elementary.
Vivian Boring, School Secretary at Mission Vista High School.
Purdy Turner, assistant principal at Vita. Tawny Rosales, first grade teacher at Breeze Hill Elementary. Rebecca Rockwood, second grade teacher at Honolulu Elementary.
Lisa Harrison, teacher at Rancho Minerva Middle.
Linda Garcia, Community Liaison. Russell Gottman, PE teacher and coach at Alta Vista High School. Andy Mendez, new duty assistant and crossing guard at Casita Center. Thank you for all your nominations and support. Have a great evening.
Awesome. One more round of applause for our amazing. We do this every month, so we're super proud of them. Chris, check real quick. We had some technical difficulties, but let me know if it's working now. Is it working? Is it working now? Yeah, that's what he's checking right now. He's checking on the line. Give us 1 second, guys. We're just checking our audio. Good. All right. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay. All right, so the next thing that we want to talk about, thank you for your patience as we work through the technical things. We have some amazing leaders in our school district. They are officially the youngest board members in our district, and we wanted to introduce them. And every year we do have a tradition, and the tradition is a leader from the school introduces our new student board members. So officially, the board would like to welcome you, and we're going to call you up individually to the podium with your principal or your assistant principal to introduce you. We'll first start with Mission Vista High School Principal Jeremy Walden.
All right. Good evening, board members, Dr. Doyle, student board members, community members, Jeremy Walden here, principal at Mission Vista. Super excited to introduce to you Megan Taft, our student board rep for Mission Vista this school year. Megan is, she's our ASB president, super accomplished student. She's involved in everything, but she's a servant. She's a servant leader, does a lot of things behind the scenes, gets no credit, but makes sure that things go the way they should. She's an advocate for the students and the student voice at Mission Vista, and she's going to serve in this role super well. So pleased to introduce you to Megan Taft.
Welcome, Megan. Well, Megan, just so you know, no speech yet, but in a couple of months you actually will give a speech about your time on the board and the work you're doing at your school. So thank you for your leadership. All right, our next school is Principal Dr. Joel Miller is going to introduce the student board member from Murray High School.
Good evening, Dr. Doyle, board members. My name is Joel Miller. I'm the new principal of Alt Ed. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I have the great pleasure of introducing Brandon Burton, a senior at Murray High School, representing all three of our Alt Ed sites. Talking to some of the educators in Alt Ed about Brandon, reserved kid when he came to Murray, but over the last year and a half that he's been here has kind of come out of his shell. Now is greeting strangers on campus. He's the voice of our announcements every day, and he's really proud to begin a career in the construction field as he graduates.
Welcome, Joel. All right, our next student board member represents Rancho Buena Vista High School, and Assistant Principal Dan Reiska is here to introduce Dan.
Dr. Doyle, board members, I'm very privileged to be able to introduce Analia here. We had a chance to speak with a number of students who are interested in it, all great students who would represent us well, but Analia just stood out as somebody who represents our community. She's involved in our visual performing arts and our athletics, and has been highly involved across the school. And when we talked with her, one of the things that really stood out to us as we were speaking with her is last year she did a project on our blueprints. And which just showed us that she's really invested in the work of our district, as well as just knowing that as she kind of steps into this role, that she'll own it, do everything she can do to be able to really kind of represent our school and herself well. So I'm happy to introduce Analia to the team.
Right, Analia. And our final board member represents Vista High School, and Principal Megan Ratliff is here to introduce her. Megan.
Superintendent Dr. Doyle, board members, it's my privilege to introduce to you Miss Sophia James. She is from Vista High School and is an excellent representation of high academic achievement and character at our school. She is not only taking a high level course load across all of her courses, she is also part of our Character Leaders program, and we're very proud of our Character Leaders program at Vista High School. So she leads not only in academics, but in character and service as well. She'll be reporting directly to our Student Senate to bring the voice of Vista High School students to you. So this is Miss Sophia.
Welcome, Sophia. Great. So we went through an official process, myself and members of our team, to onboard each of our 4 board members. They did a wonderful job. We gave them a notebook of all the work they have to do. And I can assure you that they're already doing their homework, and we truly appreciate having student voice on our board. And as is tradition, I'm going to hand it off to each of our board members to say a couple of words of wisdom, them being in a position of leadership as well. So we'll start with our president. Alvarado.
Welcome. I'm so happy to see, to meet you all tonight. It's incredible that you guys are so proactive in finding out about how your school district is running. I knew nothing about the board, who makes decisions, and also that you are wanting to represent your school and bring their voice to us. So I applaud you for that, for being proactive and putting yourselves out there to represent your student body at your site. Welcome.
Vice President Kelly.
Thank you. Challenge us. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you think and have you weigh in for student voice.
Thank you very much, Vice President Kelly. And our clerk, Rena.
Hello, I'm so excited that you all are here and thank you so much for stepping up and doing this and serving your schools. Your voices are very important to us. So I look forward to working with you, and I'm the newest board member on the board. And I have to say, this is my first summer without, when I first got on, we had student board members, and it just seemed, not that I don't love my colleagues, they're awesome, but it just kind of seemed a little lonely without the select board members. So we welcome you. I'm so happy, and I really want to emphasize what my 2 colleagues said, because that's exactly how I feel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you will find this to be a wonderful experience, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
And just to make you feel supported, we do have an honorary school board member right next to Morocco's sign there. In the event that you get lonely, you just got it right there. All right, well, thank you so much. We're really looking forward to working with you. Again, just friendly reminder for the record, we know that you have large loads academically. You're all doing amazing work. And that we would hope that you would step away from the dais at about 8 o'clock every night, because you do need to get home and do your work, and we're aware of that. And the board president will find time to take a break so that you can do that. So we definitely do not want you to stay too late, because you have an obligation to your studies as well. So welcome. We're really happy to have you. All right, last thing for me. Sorry for taking so long, but there's some really amazing things happening in the school district. Every once in a while, we have a school that does amazing work. And the good news for us in the school district is it happens to us often, quite often. As a matter of fact, a couple happened last year. So we have one this year that has just done an amazing amount of effort and work, and they have been officially recognized in a way that doesn't happen very often. So I would like to read a little bit on it, but before I do, I'd like the principal Casita and her team to step up to the dais. Come on up, Casita Center. I just want to read a couple of things, because I'm sure Jenny doesn't want to brag about herself and her school. We should. So a couple of things for the board and members of our public to know. Casita Center was named a 2023 National Blue Ribbon School. A little bit about Blue Ribbon School. If you're wondering, what does that mean? So let me read a little bit about this. So the national award has been given out since 1983 on behalf of the United States Department of Education, so it's national, to recognize elementaries, middles, and high schools across the nation. Casita received the award as an exemplary high-performing school. Well done. Thing that's very interesting about this award. And by the way, Casita is not the only school in the district that has won this award in the past. We'll name those schools in a moment. This accomplishment is one of only 2 schools in the entire county of San Diego to win this award. And there are 42 school districts in the county of San Diego. That's an amazing accomplishment. One of 33 schools in the state of California, the largest state in the union. And one of only 353 schools across our entire nation, and there are 130,000 schools in the entire nation. So it's an accomplishment that we are super proud of. We know that your staff, your students, your teachers, your classified staff, your parents, everyone worked hard to make this happen. But officially, on behalf of the entire school board, congratulations. Your team, but just tell them a little bit of the official, because it's not happening yet, it's coming up in December.
Yes, so Dr. Doyle, esteemed board members and guests, thank you for having us. I want to introduce you to a sampling of our talent at Casita. We have Jessica Garza, our second grade lead. Elizabeth Weiser, she is our IB coordinator. David Angeli, he is our ed specialist and our team impact lead. And Erica Stevenson, she is our communications lab teacher and magnet lead. And we have our assistant principals, Tracy Zachary, and myself, the principal. And so we're very fortunate. I know our team of community members, families, and our staff work really hard to set high expectations and really focus on inquiry-based learning to support our students. So we thank you for your continued support. Yeah.
And the
Very
official
excited.
event, tell them about the official event.
Oh, yes. So the official award ceremony is in Washington, DC, and it will be on my birthday and Dr. Doyle's birthday, actually.
Happy birthday, Kristen.
Yes, and Miss Weiser and myself will be representing our school.
Excellent.
Very excited.
Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised. I'm so proud of everybody and I thank you for your hard work on behalf of the students of Vista.
Yeah.
Trustee Morocco?
Just, I'm over the moon about this. I'm so proud of all of you. It's a wonderful school. You guys have worked really, really hard, as has all the teachers and the staff and all the employees there. So I just want you to know how grateful I am for all of your hard work, and it's just awesome that you guys are getting recognized this way.
Yes, fantastic.
Thank you.
So just so everyone knows, this is, Casita's not the only school that has been recognized in Vista as a blue ribbon school. Our two high schools, Rancho Buena Vista and Vista, have been recognized in the past. Madison has been recognized in the past, so it's been, I don't know if Monte Vista was recognized, under California Distinguished School. I don't know if they were.
Oh, yeah.
But so we're proud of our teachers, we're proud of our support staff, and we're absolutely proud of you and the work you've done. Thank you so much.
Thank
Don't
you.
feel like you have to stay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the public hearing, 6A. Present the Vista Unified School District Sunshine Proposal to the Vista Teachers Association for negotiations of the successor agreement for the 2023/24 school year for public comment. The purpose of this item is for the Board of Trustees to conduct a public hearing regarding the Vista Unified School District Sunshine Proposal for the negotiation of its successor agreement for the 2023/24 school year to the Vista Teachers Association. I just repeated myself. It is now open for public comment. If anyone would like to address the board, please feel free to come up to the dais and address us for 3 minutes. All right, seeing none, we will now proceed with closing this public hearing. The next item on the agenda is 6B. Present the Vista Teachers Association Sunshine Proposal to the Vista Unified School District for negotiations of the successor agreement for the 2023/24 school year for public comment. The purpose of this item is for the Board of Trustees to conduct a public hearing regarding the Vista Teachers Association Sunshine Proposal for the negotiation of its successor agreement for the 2023/24 school year to the Vista Unified School District. It is now open for public comment. Anyone would like to address the board? Seeing none, we will now proceed with closing this public hearing. The next item is 6C, declaring sufficient textbooks or instructional materials for each student. We will now convene a public hearing on declaring sufficient textbooks or instructional materials for each pupil for the 2023/24 school year. Under Education Code Section 6011-9, the board must hold at least one public hearing to solicit comments from members of the public regarding the sufficiency of textbook and instructional materials. And we did not get any hold cards for this.
No, we did not.
Chris? All right. Thank you for, well, no one gave me comments. Thank you for your comments. No, as you were. So, see no public comments. I will now, end the public hearing on declaring sufficient textbooks or instructional materials for each pupil for the 23-24 school year. And this hearing is now closed. All right, now that's a mouthful. Sorry. Tongue twister. All right, the next item on the agenda is 7A, presentation by community members. Public comments, community members, any member of the audience who wishes to hold and speak to an agenda item or at the appropriate time speak to an item not on the agenda should complete a hold card and present it to the board secretary before item 2A. Before the meeting begins, in an effort to gain as much public input as possible, individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less. A total of 20 minutes will be held for public comments under item 6A. That should say item 7A, correct, sir?
On this agenda, yes.
7 a.m.
It should, 7A on this agenda. So, okay, if there's more than 20 minutes, the remainder of public comments will be continued at the completion of the discussion and action items. Now, I should have read this at the beginning, but I forgot, so here we go. I'd like to say that the board appreciates and supports stakeholder input at our meetings. Engagement by members of the public in a civic matter is a cornerstone of our democracy. Everyone should have a chance to express their opinions within the guidelines of the board and adhere to our values, which are respect, trust, collaboration, equity, and kindness. During the meeting, there will be a time for the public to comment on matters not on the agenda. In addition, members of the public may comment on specific items. After I, the board chair, ask for public comments. Until it's your turn to speak, or if you're just here to observe the meeting, please refrain from any behavior that prevents others from participating in the meeting or that disrupts the board's ability to conduct the business of the board. This includes any conduct that prevents members of the board, district staff, or the person making public comments from speaking. We also ask that when you're called upon, you address only the board. While we assume that members of the public intend to participate in this meeting in a civil manner, and while legitimate criticism of this board is protected speech, we will not tolerate any threats of violence made to board members, to staff, or any other members of the public. In the event that there is a threat of violence, the individual will be removed from the room whenever possible and will be referred to law enforcement. In the event that the meeting is disrupted in a manner that prevents the board from proceeding with the agenda items for the meeting, we may choose to recess the meeting until order is restored. If order cannot be restored after a recess, we may choose to clear the room, move the meeting to a location where it will no longer be disrupted and adjourn the meeting. And for you new student board members, board meetings got a little bit crazy during COVID. And so in order to allow the board to conduct the business of the board, which we can only adjudicate on decisions when there's a quorum, 3 or more. It's important that I set the precedence with the public and that they know that all people can speak, but if it disrupts us from continuing to do our work, then we're gonna recess it. So that's why I read that very long speech. Sorry, and thank you guys for being patient with me. So we do have one person who will speak to 7A, Rosa McKinnon. Please come on.
Hi, I'm Rosa McKinnon, and I am the speech language pathologist at Vista High School. I have been the SLP at VHS for 10 years. I'm here tonight to discuss the shortage of SLP support in this district. Many do not know what an SLP does because they never needed one. However, for the students and families who need us, we are very important. A parent of a nonverbal child or a teacher who cannot understand a student's speech understands the value of a skilled SLP. This district claims in their vision statement that every student graduate from Vista Unified as a resilient, agile learner and creative problem solver. But how can they do this if they cannot communicate? At this time, the district's active job board lists 6 open SLP positions. The positions have been advertised and we're told nobody is applying. It is not due to a shortage of SLPs, and we know this because surrounding districts do not have a similar shortage. What they do have is higher pay. I have a side-by-side comparison here of the pay scales for 13 other surrounding districts. The pay for Vista Unified years 1 through 30 ranks 12 out of the 14. We're ranked 13th when you look at the years 11 through 30. We lost 3 seasoned SLPs this year because of pay alone, and we've been unable to replace them. When I first applied to Vista Unified, there were an abundance of agency SLPs working here, which created inconsistent support for students and frequent turnover. Within 3 years of being hired, leadership had changed, pay increases were regular, and every SLP position was filled with full-time district employees. Now those employees are leaving for better long-term pay. When SLPs are looking for jobs, beginning pay is not the only focus. It's important to look at the entire pay scale, what year you can transfer districts and maintain your year's work if needed, and the cost of healthcare. Vista SLPs have been leaders in supervising new SLPs from the surrounding universities. We invest a lot of time in training with minimal compensation and then lose them to other districts with better long-term pay. I stayed in this district because I love my site and the students I work with, but I'm currently doing the job of 1.5 SLPs with a caseload of over 100 students, all while being paid less than what I could be making in a nearby district with a smaller caseload. As it is now, the district cannot retain the best and you're exhausting the experienced. This is not the best way to support students. The cost of living went up over 9% and the district gave us 6%. We are asking for fair and competitive compensation for the entire pay scale so we can fill the positions, ease our workload, retain employees, and support our students. Thank you for your time. Would you like a copy of the?
Sure. Yes. Next item on the agenda is item 8A, the Vista Teachers Association.
Well, I want to, as I find my speech on my phone, I want to say thank you to the SLPs and give a shout out to them for all the work that they do. And listen to the competitive wages. And it's not cooperating with me, of course. Here we go. All right, good evening, the USD Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Doyle, Cabinet, welcome student board members. In a time where school boards around us are banning books or curriculum and making educators take down pride flags, VTA would like to give credit to our board for standing up for the representation of all of our students and staff. This month, VTA had representatives at the San Diego and Imperial Leadership Conference, September 29th through October 1st. We will have representatives at CTA State Council, October 27th through the 29th, representing CTE, Adult Ed and Alternative Education and Budget. This year, VTA and the Rotary Club of Vista is sending one 8th grade student from the USD to LEAD, which is Leadership, Ethics, Aspiration, and Determination Camp. We didn't get as many VUSD students applying as we had hoped for, but we were able to sponsor 3 students from Oceanside because, really it's all about students. On this evening's agenda, you will approve the MOU that VUSD and VTA worked on together regarding Article 22. We were pleased with the outcome of this MOU and the opportunity it provided for us to work together to preserve important parts of shared leadership and site culture. Also on this agenda tonight is our contract openers for 2023-2024 contract negotiations. We look forward to returning to the bargaining table on October 20th and hope that it is with a collaborative spirit that we can do what is best for VUSD students, staff, and community to make Vista a great place to live and a great place to learn. We know the reality of declining enrollment, and we have a shared interest of attracting families to Vista because of successful public schools. And VTA would like to also give a shout out of solidarity to our CSEA family, many of which do not make a living wage. We are all stronger when we work together. And thank you, welcome students.
Next is item 8B, a report from the California School Employees Association.
Good evening, school board members, cabinet, student board members, and CSEA brothers and sisters. My name is Glenda Garcia. I am a community liaison. First and foremost, thank you CSEA for letting us use the classified minutes to advocate for classified community liaisons. We want to begin by saying that we love our job, we love our families, and we love our students, and we love our community. We would like to take this opportunity to tell you what we do for our school and families at Vista Unified School District. Our goal is to petition for livable wage and to convey that it is essential to fairly compensate us in alignment of the value of the skills that we do. Upon our research, we have learned that we currently are the lowest paid classified community liaisons in comparison to other local districts like Escondido Union School District, San Marcos School District, Encinitas, El Cajon, Carlsbad, and Poway Unified School District. In the past 9 years, the work we have done as classified community liaisons includes, but is not limited to, outreach to our family, outreach to our entire communities, especially our marginalized communities, provide workshops for our parents and families, bring a volunteer participation, create long-lasting and trusting relationships with our families, consistently being available for family concerns and needs, support and facilitating school committees, translate and interpret to bridge the language gap between our families and the community, rebuild trust where it may be broken, promote a joyful and safe environment in our schools. We're very good at that. Build relationships with outside community partners and facilitate communication between parents, counselors, teachers, and staff. Overall, we remain flexible and work our hours around our parents' needs. We connect the parents who tend to stay on the outskirts, and we empower them to be an active participant in their children's education. We each have countless success stories with our students and families through the work we have done. We work alongside our principals and our teams at our individual schools, strategizing individual approaches to reach our school community. Our parents and families are a true statement of the importance and vitality of all the work we do. Together, we are the heart of family and community engagement, and we are proudly Vista every day. We don't want to have to reconsider our employment due to financial hardship. 17% of our community liaisons have supplemented their income through a second job to make ends meet, while 10% of liaisons are actively looking for a second employment or searching for a higher paid position altogether. Each of us have an investment in this district, not only as employees, but also as parents, former students, and community members. When looking at our skills and responsibilities that this job requires, it is hard to rationalize comparatively daily workload with our actual pay. Given our critical role in our education ecosystem, it is only equitable to give the classified community liaisons a livable wage. This would be a tangible recognition of our dedication and a means to attract and retain more talented individuals who can continue to impact our students and communities positively. The district has created a career framework for instructional assistants and child nutrition service assistants as a way to attract and retain highly skilled individuals. Currently, community liaisons are in high demand in our district, especially with the addition of the community schools grant given 14 of our schools. Creating a career pathway for liaisons would be one way that the district would be supporting and valuing the skills and talents we bring to the Vista community, while also providing us with livable wages. Community liaisons work in partnership with students, families, staff, and the community on a daily basis. We would appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with the district to find a career framework that meets the district's needs and values the work that we do appropriately. We understand that budget considerations are paramount, but investing in us, your classified community liaisons, will yield long-term benefits in terms of student success, community engagement, and overall school district performance. Thank you, everyone who came out to support us. And thank you, board members, for your time and serious consideration. We look forward to hearing back from you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. item on the agenda is 9A board member report out. We'll start with trustee Morocco.
Oh, good. So, I went to Washington, DC, so, that, brought back some pens. I'm most proud of though, is that I actually went to the Library of Congress as a researcher. And I got my Library of Congress card during banned book week. I want to say that. So I encourage everybody to go get a library card. But I got mine from the Library of Congress, so I'm kind of cool about that. It was very cool, but a lot of historical stuff went on. I was there in the gallery when they Hakeem Jeffries was filibustering the extension of the debt ceiling. And then I saw Senator Schumer sign it, and then I saw the vote to oust Speaker McCarthy. So a lot of historical stuff, a good time to be there. So, and I bring it up because I also saw our wonderful, wonderful Congressman Mike Levin. I saw him in action on the floor doing his job, working for us, and that was good. And then I think Dr. Doyle will be talking a little bit more about Secretary Javier Becerra, who coincidentally, the function that I was out there for in Washington, DC, I actually ran into him, spoke with him and introduced myself. So I was feeling under the weather on the day of that event, but I have a feeling that if I had showed up, he might think I was stalking him because it was like literally less than a week before that I saw him. Anyway, so that's, I'm trying to think of anything else that I've been doing with the schools. I'm dealing with some back problems, so that's kind of, that was what I did.
Thank you, trustee Morocco. Trustee Kelly?
Thank you. Since our last regular meeting in early September, I think there are two, maybe three key things I've been involved with. The one that was really refreshing, and I think will have some good impacts for our district, was something President Alvarado and I attended with our state senator, Catherine Blake Spear. She's a first-year senator, and she's called together trustees from school boards in her congressional district to talk to us about what we need and where we have enough support, where we're looking for more support. I think it was really eye-opening for her, and I applaud her for bringing together her constituents at the school district level to talk to them. It's nice to have open doors for advocacy.
Yes.
So another advocacy related thing was I met with my city council member, Dan O'Donnell, about bicycle safety, which is something that, we care very much about. We have a number of students riding bikes to school on roads that the district does not control. So I like to have open conversations to stay in the know and advocate for our students that way. And then the last thing I was part of since our last meeting was the Magnet School Steering Committee. That group is very busy under the leadership of Dr. Shigela, who's back there somewhere, I think. Hi. We're just actively listening to the committee and looking to it for recommendations for many future topics that we're going to hear about this evening.
All right. So I attended or attempted to attend a conference for the California Latino School Board Association in Long Beach. And I showed up on Thursday, which was just like a president's ceremony. And the next morning I wake up and there's a strike in front of the hotel. And so it was in Long Beach, and the service workers there went on strike. As such, the association decided to pull out of the conference to stand in solidarity with those workers, because like the president said, those parents are parents of students that we serve. And so we did get to go to the Queen Mary, and I got to meet Dolores Huerta again and dance with her on the dance floor, because that wasn't associated with the strike. But yeah, I was sad about not having access to those conferences, but they're going to offer them virtually. And now they're going to make it free for all of you to watch those conferences or those presentations. So it's not just for me, y'all, everyone can watch it, including our student board members. So kind of bittersweet, you know, in a one way, we were standing in solidarity with some of our lowest paid workers in the state of California. And then I was sad that I couldn't learn, but I understand why. And then I got to attend the ceremony to celebrate Casita for the National Blue Ribbon recognition. And that was so energetic. You could feel the electricity in the air. And it was great. It was great to be there. And Trustee Vargas attended with me as well. And of course, the press was there. And but more importantly, you know, our community was there. And I think it's contagious, right? The energy and also the things that Casita is doing. I hope that we're able to somehow learn and extend some of those practices to our other schools. So that was a wonderful day. And then I went back to work. Okay, so I finished conferences. So that's all I did this month.
I forgot to.
Yes.
Okay. I finished. Are you ready? I apologize.
Are you ready?
I forgot two things. I need to write these things down. I was on a panel for Band Book Week for the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, which is the Black women's sorority out of Howard University. And I was on there in Oceanside with City Council member Eric Joyce, which was wonderful. It was very, very awesome. So we had a panel, took questions from the audience about books and the banning of books, and it was a really good, very, very dynamic. And then the other thing I forgot to mention was I attended the DLI's steering committee meeting with Rafa, with Rafa, and so it was really educational and informative. I'm so excited about our DLI programs. I just I can't wait. I wish they were rolled out to all of our schools yesterday, you know, so, but anyway, so that was awesome. And that's incidentally, ironically, that was sort of what I was researching at the Library of Congress, so.
And to speak for my fellow trustees, Trustee Smithfield and Trustee Vargas, they attended the North County LGBTQ Gala with Dr. Doyle
And team.
for
5 years in a
And
row.
I'm proud that this board continues to stand with our most marginalized kids because we're saving lives every day by being proactive and standing with them. So that makes me proud.
And that's sponsored by the North County LGBTQ Resource Center. And this district has supported that for as long as I can remember. We've attended their gala for 5 years in a row. So it was great to be there.
And I don't know if our students actually know that or our staff, but it gives me great pride that not only do we follow the law, but we're proactive about it. And so, and we will continue to do that.
Yes, we will.
All right, enough of the reports. Imagine if the other two were here. We would be talking on that. Yeah.
We're committed. We're
All right.
committed board members.
Next item on the agenda is 10A, staff committee reports to the board. 10A is transportation services updates and outlook 2023-2024. We do have hold cards. We have 4 hold cards. So the first speaker is Kimber Garcia.
Okay.
I try to lead these meetings with a lot of professional decorum, and I'm going to respectfully ask that we hold the applause because it's not conducive to the work that we have to do. You may proceed, Ms. Garcia.
Evening, Dr. Doyle, members, and you guys are awesome. I'm a school bus driver. My name is Kimber Garcia. I have driven for over 25 years. I've been to 5 different districts. Okay, I have been here for over 15 years. I've started at the bottom, obviously 5 times. The MOU that we have on the bonus, the sign-on bonus and the 8-hour guarantee has brought us a lot of new drivers. We have 2 brand new driver instructors that are awesome. They have put out product that you would not believe. We have drivers that I'm proud to say I work with. We've had some people retire. The morale is on a rise, which, you know, for Vista, that, like I said, I've been 5 different places. I think that at the end of this MOU, we lose it, we're gonna lose drivers. Because they can go anywhere else. They can drive truck. They can do whatever they want to do. People will retire. Because with the insurance increasing at 8 hours, it's the only, I had to change from one insurance with people I've been with, you know, the United Health, whichever it is, and go to Kaiser because I couldn't afford to keep my family on that insurance. That's hard to do when you've been with somebody for a long time. And that's across the board, classified, everybody. So, we were talking about route audits. Why an auditor has to come in. I think number one, that if more responsibility is put back on the drivers and they have ownerships of their routes and they audit their own routes more than what they do now, then number one, it'll be off one person who is doing that right now. It's our dispatcher, and she's human. There are mistakes made, but you know, if they're on the driver, number one, that'll take up that 8 hours. You know, we're worried about finding things to do for drivers. It's like you shouldn't have to. They should be accountable for more of what their job is, their profession, what they were trained to do. I've done routes at different districts because they have us do that. No, I lost train of thought. I just got back from vacation, so I don't have a speech written down. Sorry. I think that's the biggest thing is that ownership of the routes so that we as drivers are have the time with the 8 hours to do what we're supposed to be doing, and it's not all piled onto one driver, the dispatcher. You know, there's a lot of other people, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. So I'm gonna call the next three speakers, and you guys, if you would please get in line, and then it would be a little bit quicker, and a little bit more efficient. Mario Bohorquez will be the first speaker. Andrew O'Deleaser, and if I said your name incorrectly, please correct me, sir. And Anita Hefman. All right, go ahead, Mr. Bohorquez.
Yes, Mario Bohorquez, CSCA Vista Chapter First Vice President, Chief Union Steward, Chairperson of the Negotiations Committee. The point, the bonuses and the 8 hours is great. That has been helping bring people in. Kimber has made that point very clear. We're also looking at long term. 8 hours is great. The pay is still low. And that's part of why you've heard a lot tonight, living wage, and you're going to be hearing a lot more of it over the next couple of months. If it's 8 hours and I'm still eligible for food stamps, and we got drivers that are living in single bedroom apartments with kids, what does that say? It says a lot about the district, and it also says a lot about where we stand on equity. And some of you might not like it. A lot of us are aware about the raise that was given to the superintendent. Didn't twist his arm for it. These board members offered it to him. He has a lot of money. He's talked to transportation last year and brought up that we deserve a living wage, classified employees. When you see someone taking more money and the board offering it, what does it say for us? We have to negotiate and fight for that money for our raise. Somebody just gets handed to them. I wish the board would hand classified employees money like that. We have a large reserve. You know, we can't live. The way it's going right now, things need to change. We could be an example for the county itself. We could be innovative. We could really show equity, and that starts with the board on down. If we have managers and other people, they're going to look to the board for it. If they see the board not advocating for equity, why should they advocate for it for the employees that work for them? We love working at this job. I love working for transportation in this department. These are amazing people. These bus drivers kick ass every day. They get the students to school and they stretch themselves thin because we have a staff shortage. Part of it, money. We've lost several drivers, which they'll probably discuss tonight. And I've talked to every one of them that left. The reason, money. We have a driver on his way, former driver who left today. His last day is driving to LAX to go live in Massachusetts as a bus driver for $30 an hour. Why would he stay here? He loved working here, and he told me today, I was with him this morning, he's like, I need the money to support my son. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. I can read the lister or the lister, sir?
The lister.
The lister, thank you, sir.
Lister.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm a 32-year homeowner here in Vista. Okay. My wife is a 20+ year employee of Vista Unified School District. All three of our adult children are graduates of the Vista Unified School District. Okay. I recently have become a bus driver here in Vista Unified School District. So I stand before you as a concerned taxpayer, okay, and as a concerned employee here, okay? What I'd like to first establish, and maybe not everybody in the room knows, but this was a saying we used to use in my previous occupation of 50 years, okay? Definition of insanity. Everybody know what that is? It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, okay? I talk to long-term employees here in the transportation department. Let me tell you, this is an awesome group of people, amazing group of people. Okay. And and some of the stories I hear are just, it's crazy. You keep doing the same things over and over again. Nothing changes. Okay. My journey, 1 year it took the Vista Unified School District to make me a bus driver. 1 year. And the business I came from, you would have lost that person a long time ago. Long time ago. I congratulated a new bus driver the other day. He said, oh yeah, it only took me 6 months. Okay. I can tell you the business that I came from, I worked in the automotive service and repair business for 50 years. Okay. For the last 10+ years, I was there. Okay. Working in new car dealerships. It was extremely hard to get technicians. Those were the men and women that fixed cars. Okay. For years and years, everybody just paid it and you upped to pay a little bit. Finally got to the point, the only way it was going to happen, you had to pay them a lot more money and you had to grow your own. Okay. You had to bring kids straight out of these UTIs and all these other places and bring them in, pay them a bunch of money to begin with. Okay. And nurture them along. Okay. I think that word innovation right there. Okay. It's a catchphrase right now. I mean, I see very little innovation. Now, granted, I'm not a student, so I don't know what goes on in the classroom, but I can tell you in the transportation department, I see very little innovation. Okay. It's more like antiquation to me. Okay. And I know again, from the business I came from, you'd be gone. You would have closed up shop if you continue to do things the same way. You've got to progress with the times. You've got to change. You've got to move along. You've got to look at things differently. You have to be innovative. Okay. Otherwise, you are antiquated. And if you're antiquated, you're left behind. Okay. So I just, for me, I'm very fortunate. Okay. This is a retirement job for me. Okay. It's something to keep me busy. For many of
Thank
my,
you, sir, your time has expired, but if you would like, please email the board the rest of your comments and then we'll all reread it again. Okay,
Okay.
sir? Thank you, sir. All right, and last on 10A is Anita Heffman.
Hi, it's
Hi.
Anita Herman.
Herman.
Yeah,
My bad.
HERMAN. Anyway, I am a homeowner here in Vista also. My 3 children all went to Vista schools here, graduated from Vista High. I have lived here a very, very long time. I came to work for the Vista Transportation last year in October. And thinking, oh, great, it's going to be 8 hours a day and stuff. It's very close to home, et cetera, et cetera. And I was absolutely shocked and horror when I came here. I came from San Marcos. Everything's computerized. Everything is on par. I thought that I walked back into the dark ages when I walked in here. It's shocking. It needs a major facelift and it needs money to put it there. The drivers are a fantastic group of people that work here. And we all work hard every day to transport the kids to and from when people are out sick or we have people retired. We still don't have enough drivers. The one thing that would keep everybody here would be a decent amount of pay and benefits that don't cost you an arm and a leg to where you're actually having to work to pay for your benefits. This is a full-time job for me. And I am alone. On my own, supporting myself, and I'm asking for a living wage so that I can continue here. And I'm asking for the same thing for all of the other drivers that work within our school district. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. The next item, it's the same item. Now we'll have transportation department update presentation.
All right, thank you, Madam President. Dr. Bush is here to walk us through the presentation of the Director of Transportation, as well as Tracy Mann.
Thank you so much, Dr. Doyle, and to the members of the Board of Trustees. First of all, we're going to be doing a high-level overview this evening of the status of transportation. The opening part of this is going to give you some comparative data between last year and this year. Then we're going to be talking about some of the strategies as we move forward. I'm going to be inviting our Director of Transportation, Ms. Mangold, to present on slides 2 and 3. I'll be taking slide 4 myself. She'll be following up with some additional data, and then we'll be talking about the future of items. We heard from a number of public speakers, and things are looking up in transportation, but we also have a number of challenges ahead that we want to discuss and present to the board. With that, present with you with some comparative data. Looking first of all at 22-23 versus 23-24. We have our second slide, which is just something that Ms. Mangold's going to walk us through quickly as to where we were last year versus where we are this year.
Good evening. Last school year, at the beginning of the 22-23 school year, we needed 45 drivers. The last time when I presented, we had gained 2, but we had lost 2. We have an average of 6 people out today still, and then. And the driver shortfall then was -16 with an equivalent impact of -22. And that's what we paused those routes, and that really helped us to continue on. As mentioned, it is true, we have 2 great driver instructors. They have worked very hard and they have done good work. And with the incentive and driver training, we brought in 14 new drivers. And with retirements and resignations, we lost seven of them, 5 of them being just before school started. We still have 6 out a day. That is the driver shortfall of -15, so -21. So we lost 7, we lost 6, we're up 1 every day. But we have the absences to account for too.
Just I have a quick question for the clarification. Is that retired the -7, the retired that resigned drivers? Does that include the gentleman, the person on the committee?
No, not from today. These numbers are as current before the board meeting, and to clarify, it's not a retirement of the new drivers. We're going to discuss this in a moment. In addition to having a national, state, and local shortfall of a labor market surplus, we've also seen across the board in California, a large number of people beginning to retire out of this ranking. So it wasn't 14 new drivers, of which 7 retired. It was 7 of the existing drivers.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
My own ignorance, is there a forced retirement age for a bus driver?
No.
No.
Here's another way of summarizing this data that Ms. Mangold will be presenting to you.
So this time last year, we had 29 drivers with 16 vacancies, and we needed a total of 45 drivers. This year, due to the increase in special needs transportation, if we brought back the students that we have in Hop, Skip, Drive and the paused routes, we would need 51 drivers.
And that includes currently there's 36 positions filled. So if you take a look at this, we actually increased those 7 drivers. So we actually have more drivers than we've had. The vacancies in terms of the total number of vacancies is down by 1. But in the interim, the number of routes required for special education required. Recall, we have 2 different types of routes. Special education routes are mandated by law that we provide. A second is general education routes that we want to provide. But we first must provide the legally mandated routes, and that is our first obligation before we move on to those second items. So that is another way of looking to it. In terms of another way of looking at this, in looking at over the last year, the developments of what's been happening. The first is contemplating the hiring strategy that had been in place. The hiring strategy that was in place that was adopted by this board included moving from a 6-hour day to an 8-hour day, also including a $5,000 bonus. So what is the result of that? When we look at the historic number of retirements and we look at the total current composition of the workforce, almost 40% of the workforce is new drivers. That is a phenomenal amount of hiring for any one department. So my takeaway message to share is that that hiring strategy has in fact been effective in terms of bringing 40% of those drivers as new. It has not caught up with all of the demand. That is accurate. But in terms of a hiring strategy, those are wonderful things. And looking at items that are being worked on in partnership with various departments, the speed of the hiring process is being increased by HR through a variety of strategies. When we look at different ways that drivers are being able to put on this year, there are multiple ways that a driver can be hired on, not just as a transportation aid. A transportation aid, they can have options to now drive a white fleet vehicle and other options that are available to them. In terms of route efficiency models, we're going to talk about this a little bit later in terms of strategies. When we talk about route audits, we're not talking about how a driver drives from place to place. We're talking about global systems within the districts between special education, other items, and how these interact. For route efficiencies, for special education, we actually added 8 routes. But we are able to do that through an efficiency model with 6 drivers. So that's a different way of looking at that. And then standardization steps, these are ways of increasing efficiency by looking at the yard, shop, inventory, and other items. And that process has already begun, and that represents a decrease in hundreds of thousands of dollars of money and items sitting on shelves and confusion that can happen over those items. So we're going to talk a little about that later in the presentation. But first, we wanted to give you just a general overview of, again, what it takes to become a bus driver. And this is not new information for everybody, but we want to make sure that this information is in the public because there's 2 separate routes. On route 1, it can take 12 to 16 weeks as quickly as it currently can be done if you do not have a license. It doesn't mean that you will do it in 16 weeks. There's a variety of other things that can happen. You can take part of a class one time and then another class another part of the year. On the other is if you currently have a license. So as you look down, you have 2 different ways to get through this bus driving process. Now, Tracy is going to walk us through just some of those steps so you're aware of what they are.
Well, they enroll in the class.
Yes.
Pardon me.
Yes, I'm sorry.
If there are students in the audience who are here for their government credit class, you guys are excused. And you can have our assistant superintendent sign any form that you need signed. I don't know if we do have any students. Okay. Pardon me. All right, you may proceed. Thank you. Ms. Miller.
Thank you, President.
So after enrollment in the class, there are classroom hours that the driver candidate has to take. There's a minimum of 20, but it takes more like 30 to teach all the curriculum. After that, they have to get a learner's permit, which requires them to take a minimum of 4 tests at the DMV. Once they've done that, they get their fingerprints. They have to take written testing at CHP as well. And that testing includes rules and regulations and first aid. And then that's after all of that is done, they take the behind the wheel training. There's a couple of challenges with that. And one of the challenges is that the instructors are often driving, so they don't have a whole lot of time to spend on behind the wheel. And the testing it can be very time consuming because they have to study a lot of that material before testing them. Then they apply and they interview, they make the offer of employment, they're fingerprinted, orientation, and they have to be made proficient in every bus before they're allowed to drive it alone on the road with the students. And that is a long process of getting them ready to go. We send them out on routes with veteran drivers so they can get used to getting to know the kids, where to park. And it just helps them to get comfortable to see somebody else actually doing it because all the training is done in an empty bus. So
No, what Mangold is previewing here is an item that we'll talk about a little bit later. She introduced two aspects of the bus driver process that are really important. First is getting to know the routes and the students and the procedures. The second is getting to know the buses. And when we talk about standardization, right now, we have a lot of different types of buses. And for every different type of bus you have to have a different training procedure for that bus. So if you decrease the number of types of buses you have, you actually decrease the amount of buses people have to be trained on. So that way they can move more effectively from place to place, which really does matter in terms of global operations when you have dozens and dozens or 50, 60 buses, if you have to train across a variety of items. The second item is when we talk about having somebody who has a license already, please remember, they still have to be trained on our buses and on our routes and know our kids. So just because they come from a different district, does not mean that they're not receiving training. They have to go through all of that as well. Next over, we're just going to take a quick high-level overview in terms of looking at what is happening with routes. Again, this is a slide that we presented in the past. This is just an updated on the slides. It's per route for any questions you may have as you look across the board. It's the school, the type of route. Keep in mind, we have two items we call one a route. That's more traditional. Buses stop individually in various areas. When we say shuttle, that's a little more of what we described previously, accurate or not. I described it as like a Disneyland service, like going to a parking lot. There's one stop in the parking lot, one stop at the final destination. You're going to see the total number of applicants, how many passes are currently issued. In some cases where there are shuttles available, there are two shuttles. There's a morning or evening. That's where you see, for example, the first in the morning, and then in the evening, you see 40 versus 52, second 41, 52. That's to indicate which one of those items. So 41 of the first shuttle, 40 in the morning, 40 in the morning, 52 in the afternoon going home. Second shuttle in the morning, 41, 23 going home, back and forth. What you will note though on each of these items is the buses are not reaching capacity currently, and that's why we wanted to share this particular piece of information.
Where is the information about the routes that we paused over a year ago that we haven't been able to restore yet?
We can send that information out in the Friday letter. Those routes are currently still paused while we implemented each of the new special education routes.
Yeah, I expected this report to include that information because we have families that are waiting a long time and they need an update. And we as a board have prioritized that we restore those routes. So I'm hearing a lot of reasons why that's a challenge, but I'm disappointed we don't see any plan for those routes. And what they are, like, just to recap what they are. Because this precedes your time
I
on the
was here
board.
for that. I was here at this meeting.
Not when we paused them.
Yeah.
It was the summer before you were elected.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so this goes back a very long time. That we've disrupted transportation for quite a few families. So.
Yes, we'd be happy to provide that for. Looking ahead in terms of the strategic intent of some of the action items that are upcoming and the processes. First of all, efficiency and routes of routes and services. This is a specialized consultant headed by Tim Priebus. Tim Priebus previously has headed a variety of transportation services and is a well-known state consultant. This is an independent audit review of all routes and procedures, looking if we can do things differently, if there are policies, procedures, or other ways that are perhaps not allowing for us to be as efficient as possible. The next is looking at cross-training and capacity of existing team members. You heard that we have two wonderful bus driver trainers. That's twice as many as we had at the onset. That's wonderful. But as we continue to grow transportation routes, we've moved from 45 to 51, depending upon the challenges that we will be facing and other items in the future. That can continue to grow. And it's not And we do have this focus on looking at drivers, but as we look at drivers, we have to look at growing also our transportation assistants, the office services and support staff that go along with those, including how things are trained. In the meantime, we're looking at expanding bus driver training office through offering the opportunity to cross-train existing members that might be able to work in a different capacity for short term. Looking at what we need to do in terms of implementing technology. We heard from a speaker this evening, they came from a different district, things are different in different districts. That is accurate. We have been adopting a new technology called the TransFinder system, which is a standardized system. We're in a pilot year. Next year becomes our implementation year. So that is something that is ongoing this year. Also, though, looking at our improved operational efficiency and the modernization of the fleet, we'll be speaking briefly about the updates to the electric buses, what is being done. But we're looking at what do we do with the existing fleet? How do you standardize it in terms of purchasing of vehicles? And then how do you create quality control services for every aspect from repairs to purchasing to make sure we have consistency across the board? When we look ahead to.
Well, I would like a question on that,
Yep.
on this whole thing with the audit.
Mhm.
Could you explain that to me? Because one of the speakers brought it up. So could you explain to me what exactly this audit, what it's like? What
Sure.
does that mean?
Well, the independent auditor comes in and looks across the board at policies, procedures, and practices. Everything from how you offer your existing routes to where those routes are located, to who gets what services depending upon what and what different options
And-
might be there.
And this independent auditor, where do we find that person?
That's a state consultant named Tim Freebus that has previously engaged in this work successfully with a variety of districts.
And he works for the state of California? Or
No, he works for an independent service. He's worked for the state of California and a variety of other medium and large districts in that
Okay.
capacity.
All right, okay, thank you. Thank you. That answered my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee. When we look ahead to the future, we do see specific challenges that are out there based upon items that we predict the board will make decisions on this year. For every challenge, there may be an implication that's out there. When we look at school boundary results, we'll be given an update to school consolidation here shortly. When we look at school boundaries, that could have a capacity impact looking ahead where we may need to engage in a discussion about front loading the hiring of new drivers in order to meet the needs of the next year. When we look at that, we're looking at the number of routes and what is to be offered. When we look at the construction outlook, what we were doing when we look at Beaubier, depending upon what the strategy is for Beaubier on that construction, it may have implications to transportation, and we need to be able to look at that. When we look at driver training and staff development, we have to continue to find ways to do that more effectively and efficiently and offer multiple ways for drivers to be trained. And then finally, for hiring drivers, we need to, again, continue to have this pulse as an HR strategy as to what's happening in the labor market, not just in terms of bus drivers, but globally. So that way we remain competitive. We saw that a previous hiring strategy, it's been very successful. We want to make sure to continue to be successful in our hiring strategies. Finally, is a quick update on terms of the electric fleet and general updates around this. For the electric bus fleets in terms of next steps, right now, 6 mid-sized buses are in service, 1 small for a total of 7 of the electric fleet. When we look to the future, we have 14 large buses coming in with 2 more. That's 16 total on the way. That's going to require some fairly significant modifications to the bus yard where we have not had access to adequate electricity. Those next steps, we started with the first 3 charging stations. We kicked that off last year. We are adding 6 charging stations in the upcoming months for a total of 9 stations. However, the next large step is called a partial yard electrification. That is something that we need to engage in to have room for all of these buses. Keep in mind, charging an electric bus, not a quick activity. It requires hours to achieve overnight. And in order to do that, right now, we have the design that's been approved. Thank you very much to the city of Vista. We have our architect this evening, Steve Prince, who has been involved in that as well. But right now, we're in a stage that's a little out of our hands. That's San Diego Gas and Electric approval process. And they are in the process of doing that, and that's because of how much electricity we need to bring into the yard. So we're hoping to have an update about that item here in the near future. So simply to summarize as an overall, what we are seeking for that 2-year plan is improve routes and capabilities. That means the ability to offer more routes. We have been able to offer more routes. We did pause routes. We actually have offered as many as we paused, but those had to be within special education services. So what we need to do is continue to increase our capacity. In terms of modernization of the fleet and yard, being able to get into that process, which is a multi-year process of modernizing and standardizing our fleet. So that way we can do things more effectively and then increase the efficiency and standardization of that fleet. So that way we're able to deliver services at the highest level.
I have a question. Is there a more efficient way to transport our kids that have it written in their IEP? That doesn't require a bus? I know, because I feel that if we thought outside of the box, and cars today, vehicles are very safe now, they have a lot of safety mechanisms. I feel like if we could find another way to transport those single person routes, that we would free up more spots for kids who are displaced by physical boundaries, geography, and within our district. What kind of what are the legal barriers to that?
Sure. So we have a couple of items with those. First is the routes that have been added. Just to clarify, and thank you for asking the question, the routes that have been added are not single passenger routes. These are with multiple students on board and do require a bus. Typically, a chair is involved. We also have noted that we do have a contracted service partner that we have been able to use that has not been able to meet our needs. They have not been able to consistently deliver on special education services. In terms of the number of routes to be offered, they also have shortfalls of drivers. But also in addition to that, they haven't been consistent. And we need consistency for all students, but particularly for students that are in chairs or might require specialized services. Part of the position of the person that comes in to do an audit is to look at items like that and to look at if there are any possible policy or other barriers that can be lifted on that. For example, they may come back, and this is not an uncommon item, of suggesting a policy that says that rather than offer transportation blanket, that transportation is offered in different capacities. For example, an offer to a parent for reimbursement of mileage for services, an offer that might include what can be done to help a family that might need services that requires chair lifts or other items, or a third option. So that is part of the person that comes into audit as what they look at and share with us.
I asked because I spent time with our state senator, and this is a conversation I had with her. I said to her that we were having a very difficult time hiring our classified staff, and that we need something, help from the state to help. I don't know if that means like standardized healthcare for people who work in the public sector, in the school. I don't really know, but I was throwing these ideas out to the senator. And I'm lucky that we are able to, have regular meetings with her. And so I'm looking forward to more innovative suggestions. I mean, if that means that laws have to change at the state, or laws are proposed, right? That's not an easy thing. I make it sound so easy, but the state senator, doesn't really understand education. She hasn't worked in the schools. She understands it as a parent of someone in Encinitas, but doesn't really understand the full complexity. So I would like to be able to give her some tangibles so she can go and advocate on behalf of Vista Unified.
Yeah.
Trustee Kelly?
Thanks. I have a short list. We heard from many public speakers to this agenda item about pay and benefits needing to be more competitive, but I don't see that listed in your challenges and possible solutions. Can you speak to that?
Yes, actually, that's what I meant by our HR strategy and keeping pace with market items on a previous slide.
Hiring drivers, but
Yeah.
not retaining. I think we're talking about retention due to
Yeah,
pay and benefits.
all of it inclusive of
Okay.
looking at how we serve our drivers.
But that would be a bargain. So
Right.
that would come into
Correct.
play.
Yeah, but we heard loud and clear that that is a reason for attrition.
Mhm.
I'd like to see a very sophisticated analysis of slide 6, where if we're underutilizing some routes, would we serve more families if we reallocated those buses to routes that have a high demand? I see Mission Vista sits with a wait list of 27 families, yet we're underutilizing at least 3 or 4 other general ed routes. So should we be re-examining that? And I don't know the answer, but I have to ask the question. I'd like to see some data on that.
No, you're spot on. Actually, that's the reason why I asked him to put this slide in here and highlight the yellow.
Yeah.
Is that we're at a point in time where we probably should reshuffle.
Yeah.
And redo it. So this.
And it's hard to have that because we don't even know which routes we've paused.
So we can bring that back to you, but this is like a preliminary. We would like to bring an action item back to the board at the next board meeting. So you can actually take action on it. But first, we wanted to tell you what is. So we're hearing you loud and clear.
Mhm.
And our intent is to bring back a recommendation of some adjustments to routes. As a result of this information, this data, we needed to wait a couple of weeks for the
See how
to see how things flowed out. And clearly, we can see that probably we should reshuffle routes.
Okay.
And so this is like a heads up to the board. Sounds like we're on the same page.
Yeah.
We'll absolutely bring back a more sophisticated set of data, but more importantly, a recommendation for adjustments to routes, for which then we would have to communicate to parents that we're making these adjustments.
Yeah, but I think it behooves us to examine the fact that there were, families that were impacted a year ago who remain impacted, and maybe it's time to spread the bus over to share the wealth.
We hear you, we hear you. We hear you.
Retirement forecast is another note I made as we were, it sounds like, we don't have a forced retirement age, but we are impacted, it seems, by an aging workforce. How is that looking in numbers, like in years 1 through 5 from now? And how does that inform, how aggressive, like we've heard a request to renew the MOU. And then, the next questions that fire in my mind are, okay, how many more drivers do we need to hire? What are we doing for retention of the drivers we have? How aggressively are we at hiring fairs and various events? I know last year we put on a full court press, and we saw the results of that. Are we still functioning at that level?
It's pretty aggressive, but yeah,
Okay.
we'll continue to be.
I mentioned to someone the
Actually,
sign
Rita and I
on
were
bonus.
aggressive on that one.
Yeah, I mentioned the sign on bonus and no one could find it on the website. I know we went through a website overhaul
Yep.
this summer, but little things like that. And then I guess my last note was about something I remembered from a year ago. We were able to implement with reimbursing parents who
Yep.
would opt to drive their own special needs student instead of taking a bus route. And are we, is that a periodic offer that we make to parents, and how frequently are we doing it? What is the acceptance rate of that? And can we be doing more to alleviate some of the driver shortfall?
Trustee Morocco, any more questions?
Well, Vice President Kelly answered so quick my questions. Out of that, great minds, baby, great minds. I do have a question about, like, I see the first and second routes, and I do have a question about what the shuttle looks like. Actually, what does that look like? Where they pick the kids up from where? And then I assume, and then they end at the school, and then they pick them up at the school, and where? Is it another school? Is it like a shopping center? Like what does that look like?
So each route will be different, and we'd be happy to provide that to the board, either in the future presentation, but also in a Friday letter. For example, for Mission Vista High School, the pickup is actually just down the block here at a station. So it happens at a location. It may be a park, various locations. We can provide all that information to the board, and then it terminates back at the school. And then for the ride home, it originates at the school and goes back to that location.
And then what is like the difference between the first and second? Is that one driver in one bus that goes back and forth? Okay.
Typically, they go on back and forth.
And I'm wondering if there is a possibility to kind of double up, like maybe. Yeah, you're taking a shuttle from one spot and you're stopping at Mission Vista, but maybe along the way, you're gonna pass by, let's say, you know. I like totally off on, let's say I pass by Roosevelt, you know, and maybe you could drop kids off and then you're combined. Is there any ideas of that?
I think we're happy to share with our thinking through each of those items. I don't think I'm being fully accurate. So first is, when we talk about the high school to Mission Vista, it is one person that goes back and forth. And so that's one driver. But when you see an elementary, the elementaries are paired with the middle school.
Okay.
So that way there is some
I see.
efficiency models there, and it has to do with the start time that things are happening and the end time. And then there's a second factor, and Tracy and her team get into this, which is they also have to do an analysis of traffic patterns and what it takes in terms of time. So earlier in the morning, routes move at very different speeds. I'm now a resident of Vista and can attest to the fact that at some times a day, it takes me 8 minutes to get to a place, and at other times a day, because of my own construction, which Grace will speak to, it takes 50 minutes to get to the same location because of route closure. So,
And so then that brings me to action. I'm glad you brought that, because that brings me to the other question, which was. And now I had a thought, I got one, and went away. You're doubling up for oh, yeah, that's what it was. Would it help? And I know I'm just gonna throw this out there, and I think my colleagues might not agree with me on this, and that's totally fine. But would it help if we were to alter the bell schedules of some of the schools? Would that give a little bit of extra breathing room to be able to expand some of these routes?
That has been done because we're mandated to start high school at a late time by an assembly bill.
Right.
And so we already went through all this start time so that they could share, elementary school could share with the middle school. So we spent how many meetings on that?
That was lengthy. But to answer your question, it has been reviewed recently in light of our limitations on start times and geography. So, yes, we've done that.
And it was being a viable option among elementary schools, which we've done in the past, where we've had different start times for elementary school,
Right.
just in order to accommodate make more efficient the bus driving route. So it's something for us to consider.
Yeah.
That assembly bill made everything much more difficult in terms of that, the way they were tiered when my son was.
That's right.
They were tiered. But on that note, I think, we've gone a little bit long, but I just want to share with my colleagues, with one of my fellow trustees in Oceanside said that she was kind of mad at Vista Unified for what we offered our bus drivers, the 8 hours and the bonus, and that they just had no success in hiring. And she she was serious, but she was like, wow, you guys really made it hard for us. So I guess my point is, we were thinking outside. No, she was really upset, y'all.
To concur with the board president, one of my first phone calls upon accepting my assignment was from the director of transportation of Oceanside.
And anyways,
All right.
all right, thank you so much. We're gonna go ahead and close, finish that presentation in the interest of time. Thank you. The next committee report is school consolidation, 10B, update on Beaumont Elementary and Rancho Minerva Middle School.
Thank you very much, President Alvarado. And I make this statement every time we talk about this topic. I think it's necessary to make this statement. This is a difficult topic. All of us, the board member, myself, the team are sensitive and empathetic for all of the parents, the staff members, teachers, classified staff that are impacted by this process. It's not a comfortable process, but a necessary part of the work that we do together. I can tell you that our team has been very sensitive as we meet with these various groups of people, parents, students, and staff members, and we will continue to be sensitive. So I just want to underscore the difficulty of this job and the sensitivity that we are giving our staff, because we understand how they feel. However, we have been directed by the board to move forward. And so our team is moving forward. And the purpose of this presentation is simply to bring you up to speed. There is no action on this item tonight. But we do want to keep you up to speed on it, and just know that Dr. Loescher and I and many other members of our team have been out at these sites working with these groups of people to reassure them that we understand how they feel and that we're working to the best of our ability to help them get through this process. So with that, Dr. Lusher, you can take it away.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Do our student board members understand what the school consolidation process is?
Yeah, we can have Dr. Lusher at the very beginning. Talk.
Wait,
Absolutely, thank you. Just a quick overview. School consolidation for our student board members is a legal term, and at board meetings, we always are bound to use legal terms. School consolidation is a legal term that means to close a school or to reduce the number of schools that you have in a district. This occurs when we have fewer and fewer students that are going into a school district. And at a certain point, we're not able to necessarily offer everything we want at every school based upon the number of the students that are there. So for those of you, and you're all in high school, I'm a high school person myself, that's my background. In order to offer all, for example, in high school, all of our UC through G requirements, graduation requirements, all of the options that we want for electives and everything else. In order to do that, we need a certain number of students present in order to make that model work and function. That is the same, that is true in different ways in middle school and elementary. And unfortunately for our school district, the total number of students, not just in our schools, across the region, is going down pretty dramatically. And that's something that about 90% of school districts in California are facing. So this is a topic that a lot of people are having to face as to, are you going to be closing schools? And we've reached a critical board point, and the board has made a difficult decision after reviewing a lot of data and spending a lot of time, months, actually over a year and a half looking at items, that we will be closing Beaumont Elementary School at the end of this year and Rancho Minerva Middle School at the end of this year. And what we're reporting on this year is a quick update on that process. So it requires a lot of planning and a lot of steps.
Did any of you attend either of those schools?
I did.
I did.
do you have any questions?
No, I think you cleared up. Thank you. Yeah.
Just like with all of our board members, sometimes we don't have all of the questions on the moment. If you email the superintendent, he passes us back on to all of us, and we make sure that the information is distributed to everybody. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. As reported at previous meetings, and I deeply appreciate Dr. Doyle's introduction on the sensitivity of this. As professional educators, none of us got into this to close schools. I wish I could tell you this is the first time I've had to work on this issue. It is not. What I can share with you is there have been certain first things that have occurred. This is the first time I've had a superintendent and assistant superintendent that come to these meetings regularly and sit with parents and talk and come and stay after meetings and talk about the intensely personal nature that this is. So I'm grateful to both Rachel and to Dr. Doyle for being at those meetings as we work with staff and the community and all of the things that are going on. For the first slides 1 through 4, I'm not planning to go into any depth unless you have questions. These have previously been presented to you. This is just a broad overview that we put as part of the slide deck, so the public is aware of the ongoing process. And it's really what goes back to 2022 all the way over to 2024. Looking at our action steps that are about what has recently happened, including focusing on the operations and the culture of the schools. Keep in mind, the challenge there is the school is not closed. School is open. We're rejoicing with our students this year. We're learning this year. And it's a hard thing to do that. It's one of the hardest leadership challenges of any school site to get through that sort of thing. How do we go about doing that while communicating and looking at our timelines and meeting all of our rules, obligations, and legal items? In terms of looking at what is happening, and I beg the board's, my apology to the board, on Google, there is a slide number, but it is shifted to dark gray instead of the usual white. I know. So I apologize, but we are on slide 4. That's action steps August through December 2023. We presented this action list before, and our purpose on bringing it here again is just that way members that might not have seen this before and our new student board members have access to this information. So what is happening in terms of what is being considered? The following is just a quick high-level overview graphic or representation of some of that data review cycle. It's continuous. It's not that there's one set of data being reviewed. We're talking about what's called quantitative data. These are numbers, metrics. Okay, this is the sort of stuff we study in math. where we're gonna look at it and say, what's happening here? But what's happening doesn't tell us how it's happening. That can only be done through a process called qualitative data. Those are interviews, talking with people, getting into the community, figuring out what we're going to do, hearing from them directly, getting that feedback from them. And we're out there doing that. And that's where I was saying it's so wonderful to see the superintendent system. So we go as a team and we talk with people. But then we also have another group of qualitative data. And this is oftentimes called artifact data, but this is operations and policies. This is looking at board policies, administrative regulations, laws, looking at the written words and how can we interpret them. And all of that's done together by the various groups that are working on this to make sure that we're providing options to the board. So that way we can share those items with you. Most critical on this is making sure that we go about the task of communicating what is incredibly complex on an ongoing basis. In terms of our communication action plan, what we have listed on this slide, and I'm not going to go over each column or each one, but just give you a high level overview. What is the district doing? What is the school doing? And what is the school and district doing together? And if you see an item highlighted on green, those are items that have either been executed or are on an ongoing basis being executed. Talking about communications from the office of the superintendent or the chief operations officer, letters, emails, community updates, website updates, reaching out to the media and press, these sort of things, going to staff meetings. When you see an item that is in yellow, these are items that are currently scheduled but have not been done. We're at the beginning of the year, so we have not yet presented to the PTA, the SSC, and other items, but those items have been scheduled. And we will be going out doing this. When you look at items in blue are items that are yet to be scheduled but are planned. And those typically are based upon the decisions that the board will be making. So we're awaiting some of those board decisions so we get out. So that's part of the communicating decisions portion of the communications. I wanted to bring you up to date quickly on this process called reboundary. Now, reboundary, what that means is if we take a school and we close it, we need to decide where students will go next. So on any school that you attend, any of us have attended, there's a zone. It's a fictional line of where students live that would determine whether you go to one school or another school, or if you want to go to another school, whether that would be your home school and you choose to transfer to another or not. In this process, in terms of school rebounding, we have a set of processes of looking at how that's done. Now, the first step is already complete, and so is the second. We have retained Davis Demographics, who's our demographic company, working with Ms. Shackelford and myself and a variety of others, looking at what options are. We've held our startup meetings. We've done some review and explorations, looking at various options. I'm going to share some of those options for board feedback this evening. We plan to start to bring that back in November, a high-level overview. Here's what some of those options might look like based upon our initial information. And that gives you the opportunity to give us feedback to further refine that, to come to a decision point that we plan to present in December. And that would be the action item. But when we look at school rebounding, what it comes down to in working with the demographics is that there are three primary approaches that can be used. Approach A is a single site. And I want to talk about this in terms of Beaumont Elementary, because I think it's the most clear in talking about Beaumont Elementary. A single site option means you take the existing school boundary of Beaumont and you divide inside of that boundary to other existing schools around. But you do not touch any of the other school boundaries, just Beaumont's boundary. In terms of approach B, that's called a regional or cluster approach. A regional cluster approach means you don't just talk about Beaumont, you talk about Beaumont and some of the schools that the students would be redistributed to. So if we were looking at 4 or 5 schools that Beaumont students would go to, or 5 in total, then in a cluster approach, you might touch all of those school boundaries to rebalance that. Now, why might you want to engage in that approach? Well, if we look at something like Monte Vista, which on this map looks tiny, but it is the pink zone all the way to the right. It's the largest elementary school zone to the right. It has a massive boundary. You may see that that boundary extends all the way very far north above Foothill Oak. On a regional cluster approach, that boundary might shift to Foothill Oak and another area might shift over to Monte Vista. That's what a cluster approach would be. You look at multiple boundaries. And then approach C, which is very dramatic, but I'm obligated to report to the board that this, of course, is an option, is where you look at all school boundaries and say, we're going to touch all of the school boundaries and rebalance that. But these are the three primary approaches that that this reboundary process affords us. And I wanted to share with the board at this time, since that has been shared with us. So that way, if you had feedback or questions, we could do that at this time.
So are we giving him feedback tonight on what we want?
So what you're looking at here, the reason we wanted to share this with the board is because at the next board meeting, likely in November, it's really based upon whether or not our demographic association is able to finish by our next board meeting or not. We believe that they will. It's possible it will be in December, but they will bring back two options. And it's likely that the options will look like this. You can give us feedback on it if you want the additional options, but we want to preview that this is possibly the option. Obviously, they will bring back the actual data and actually give you recommendations what those boundaries could look like, but this is like a preview of that.
Well, I would propose, with the interest of time and not having the other two trustees here, just to wait till we get the information from Dane's demographics.
I do have some questions.
Okay.
So when,
Just a moment. Also, one of our student board members has.
did you have a question? You
Yeah,
go first.
I had a question. So I know that we just talked about boundaries and things. Does that affect, like the bus routes as well, if you were to like move around all of the, areas?
Yes, ma'am. That absolutely would affect it. It has the potential to impact bus routes based upon how things would look. And that was one of the points from the transportation presentation that I think you picked up on, was when we start to change something over here, school districts are complex, right? So if we change something over here may be impacted whether we realize it or not. It could be transportation, it could be food distribution services, or all sorts of things. Absolutely, that could happen.
Any more questions from our student board members? No?
So my question is, we're closing two schools. Are we going to be doing two school reboundaries, one based on elementary and one based on middle school? And if so, is it possible to do a school rebounding? Right, if that's a word, rebounding, that could take into account like the 3 tiers. So a student that is in, let's say, Belmont right now, that's going to go, be rebounded into, let's say, Foothill Oak, all right? And then which middle school they'll be rebounded into, which would probably be somewhere in Oceanside. And so they'd be rebounded there. And then for high school, where like, is there an eye into the future of like where they're gonna end up eventually, so that they have a pathway that they can see?
Yes, ma'am, and we'll present that at a future meeting. One of the phenomenal things for me to watch is how the technology has progressed. So with the demographic company, and I think they'll be able to show this on a series in their presentation. They actually take a 5 to 7 year outlook in the future. So they look as to what it means now, and then they sort of show how that progresses through the cluster, and then what the projections are over the next 7 years. So it's elementary.
I'm gonna
middle,
stop
and
right now, because that's not really what my question was. My question was about the students today
Mhm.
that are in Belmont that are going to be put into a different school. So let's say they go to Foothill Oak.
Yeah.
Then do we keep an eye on what the plan is for them? They go to Foothill Oak,
Mhm.
they go to Jefferson, and then they go to Vista High, or they go to Rancho Buena Vista, so do we, is that so that they have a plan? Is that?
That will be included in
That's
the
included.
conversation.
Yes.
You're just talking about the schools that they would matriculate into.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you.
They will absolutely. talk
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop this.
You have one more
Oh,
request, to-do list item for this team. which is, we've just invested in the long range facilities master plan. So I think when we talk about the district level approach C, we would be very wise to factor in the data that we have about our sites that are remaining open that have the most critical facilities needs. And I know that that plan included a lot of capacity study as well. So let's use the data we've paid for, please. And be very, I tend to favor personally the idea that we could balance the district as a complete system with that information in mind. And also the needs of our families from our two consolidation sites.
But I would also say that depending on what the outcome is of the bond measure, if we have a bond, some of those sites that are most in need might be brought up too. So it might be that's something else. So there's a lot of factors there.
There's a lot of factors. So, and this discussion is better with two more trustees.
I agree.
So I'm going to close this discussion and we're gonna take a 7-minute recess. And then our student board members, you're welcome to stay, but if you guys have homework and you're hungry, you can leave.
I'm good, I'm actually.
Usually my students, you know, I don't have, yeah, they do that. Okay.
Steve is learning.
Next item on the agenda is 10C, dual language immersion program expansion to the middle schools. Come on up, Dr. Shigela.
All right, well, I do want to thank Dr. Shigela for coming tonight. He's sharp. When he stands at the podium, he's perfect. And then Rafa, and your great work. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I didn't say, come on up. Mr. Olavide, come on,
Olavide,
our
yes.
Director of Multilingual Education.
So similar to, similar to the work we're doing in those, the other topics we talked about tonight. This is another complex process. Dr. Shigela and Mr. Olavide are doing a really marvelous job. They've been working with parents almost every week on different topics, and tonight they're going to give you a quick update. And coming up soon in the next 2 meetings, you'll actually have an action item. So this is just preview of coming attractions. So take it away, Dr. Shigela.
It's Rafa.
Okay, so I'll get started. Good evening, board members and Dr. Doyle, and it's our pleasure to be here presenting, giving you an update on the progress that we have made for the last couple of years, as a matter of fact, on planning the journey to middle school for our dual language immersion students. I'd like to start with the middle school DLI plan that we created at the end of last school year to get us started on implementing the work that we have been doing, following the guiding principles of dual language education, as you can see at the bottom, which are program structure, curriculum, instruction, assessment, staffing, professional development, additional resources, and of course, family involvement. So we are now with all of them. As you can see, we have, you can go back to the last slide. Thank you so much. We are in the process of finalizing the course descriptions for the course for the subjects in Spanish that will be taught next school year. And I will go over those in a second. With the support of Kelly Fleming, we are finalizing that process, and I will give you a little bit more of that description of what it's going to look like for the timeline. Altogether, we are researching curriculum that we observe in our visits to dual language immersion schools in San Diego, highly successful middle schools in San Diego offering dual language programs. So the other piece is instructional practices with Project Lab. And as you know, we have been very successful in rolling out Project Lab in many of our schools. And so we will make sure that our teachers teaching in dual language immersion programs are properly trained. Moving on to the assessment plan, which will be pretty much the same as we offer, in addition to the high quality performance assessment for 8th biliteracy attainment, and that is part of the requirements that we will have for our students as they progress into the seal of biliteracy. In addition, we have staffing and professional development. This is one of the areas that we have been very, very careful, considering we need to have teachers properly on board dual language immersion program. We have close to 30 teachers in secondary schools in Vista Unified with the Spanish authorization to be able to teach. Not only that, part of our task force is made of, large part of our task force is made of teachers who are interested in being teachers in dual language immersion programs. They have attended trips to San Diego County schools where they offer these programs. They have been learning a lot about dual language immersion principles, dual language immersion 3 pillars, etc. With regards to additional resources, we will continue to research anything regarding the multicultural aspect of being dual language students, which is anything festivals, technology conferences, and field trips. So with the purpose of kicking off a dual language immersion that we have done at Grapevine, at Nueva Mosa, and Hanley successfully, now moving into middle school 24-25. So with that, I'd like to share with you a little bit of the decisions that led us to choose what subjects would be the target language subjects in Espanol. And that would be math and social studies. Lots of reasons for that. We have done a lot of research on that. And not only those are very good subjects for our students to continue to engage in progressing academically and linguistically speaking in both languages. At the same time, we have seen that these are subjects that many of our teachers who have the bilingual authorization can teach. So therefore, we have the resource already with us. At the same time, we have seen that schools like Southwest Middle School or Nestor Academy in San Diego, these are very, very successful dual language immersion program for many years. And we were able to see in person how they have been able to focus on these particular subjects. Now, the third one, which is, we're talking about an elective. The elective will be as such, something that the student or parents decide on what it is that is going to be. One of them is Spanish for Spanish speakers, but it is an elective. It is not something that we're going to say you're required to take that class. For sure, math and social studies will be the subjects. For that, we have students will have single subject credential or multiple subject credential plus the bilingual authorization.
Do we have a program that would help pay for teachers right now who just have a multiple subject credential and want to get their BCLAD? Can we pay for it? Can our district pay for it? Can the county pay for it? Can someone pay for it?
Rachel, grants.
Money.
The way we did for TK, right? There was like a specialized program at the county. It was, a stipend was given.
Yeah, in order to do the BCLAD though, they would have to be recommended for a specific credential. They'd have to have specific classes. So absolutely, we could do any type of MOU. We're doing this with multiple other classifications.
Let's
so-
do it.
Special education we're doing.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So what I would need to do is I can look at different avenues on how somebody would get a BCLAD and we could start working on
Yeah,
that.
and I
Because it
think
is a single subject with the BCLAD.
for the middle school,
Middle school.
unless it's humanities. Wait, but it's not gonna be humanities. Well, yeah, social studies is humanities.
No, it's
Right?
because it
No?
would be 7th and 8th grade, so it would be
Okay.
a single.
Yeah.
That could only be in 6th,
It could be in six.
Yeah.
Mhm.
but not 7th and 8th.
Okay, it could be in six. I just think outside the box.
So we could start with elementary, multiple subject for the elementary with the BCLAD as those programs expand, but also the big one would be that single subject.
Well, we investigate that and we'll bring it back to you a proposal to make something like that happen. We are doing something like that in special ed. So Rachel's team has already developed a pathway, and you are correct, we're doing a pathway for TK as well. They're different because they're different credentials, but we can absolutely come up with a plan.
Well, in the TK, you can do your own micro credential within a district, but the BCLAD would not be something that we could offer. Whereas the credential for the TK, you can do in-house, or they can get the credits through the 2-year.
I'm wondering, is that something that there could potentially be grants for? I don't know, that might be.
We
an
could look into it,
question.
we could investigate it, but there, I mean, there's no reason why a district can't use funding to make something like that happen. So,
It's
because
been
is a
successful.
very difficult certificate to get. It is not an easy one. It's a lot like a BCBA, a certificate for for people in special education. Very, very hard certificate to get, but absolutely possible. You're looking at two of them, two people who actually have it.
As a person who did not get to learn to read or write in Spanish, I knew how to speak it. I failed the writing part, right? And not the speaking part at Cal State. And I was like, oh, just forget about it. I was so, upset. And someone said, no, you gotta try again, Martha, you gotta try again. And the second time I passed, but it didn't come natural for me because I didn't learn how to read or write in Spanish at all. I could speak it. So it was, on top of the classes, there's tests that will determine if you're good enough.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah. Proficient enough, I could say proficient enough. All right.
Thank you, Rachel.
I'd like to share with you the proposal timeline that we have for our course proposal, sorry. Which actually we have started already, and Kelly Fleming and I will have it done by the end of next week. With the purpose of presenting this to the middle school principals at the October 23rd meeting. And so as a result, we will have a proposal for you to be board approved at the next board meeting, hopefully. November, yes, sorry.
Question?
Yes.
Is this just middle school for Madison and Jefferson, or is it also for?
You keep saying Jefferson.
Roosevelt, sorry.
It's okay. You got the president.
Yeah.
Madison or Roosevelt,
Yeah.
or is it also Bagot schools, principals?
So, well, so this one is going to be to all the principals, so they will at the middle school principals meeting.
Okay.
So we'll present it to all.
Okay.
And they will recommend, that we take it to the school board for.
But let's answer
Go
the
ahead.
question a little bit more. When a course is developed in Vista Unified, that a course can be applied to any school in the district. So the good news is, once you develop a course, it can be applied to all of our middle schools if we want.
Is it being applied to Rancho Minerva as well?
Well, this course wouldn't be in play until next year.
Right, so that's
So it
why
wouldn't
I'm
apply to
wondering
Rancho
about
Minerva.
that.
Would not.
Okay.
And it's, to go through a course approval process is an official process, so it takes many months to go through.
Okay, so last for me, I'd like to share with you, this is what we are expecting to see in the next 3 years. And this is the number of students who will be, hopefully, as a matter of fact, we have spoken to the families at Cleveland Elementary, and they are highly committed to continuing this journey. So we're looking at 57 students starting in 24-25. And you see that number more than doubled, by 25-26 with addition of students from Alamosa. And then, of course, we'll be looking at 26-27 with 226 students in grade 6, 7, and 8. So we're very excited about, that projection.
I had a question on this slide that, I guess the best phrasing of it would be, would we limit enrollment in the DLI middle school to only students coming out of a DLI elementary school?
So that's a great question. And so we are going to obviously invite the students to continue their journey, the students who are enrolled at the elementary schools right now, as well as any students who have been in dual language immersion programs at the charter schools, for example. Now, the other part of the question would be, what is it with students coming from outside, newcomers, students who want to join the dual language immersion programs? We will have to go through a process where we assess how the students, if the students are prepared, because you're looking at 6 years of preparation from kinder, even TK, all the way to 5th grade. So it will be a process that we want to assess the students who have not been in a dual language immersion program before, to make sure that that we have good data to share with the families and have a plan in case that we need to continue with this. But obviously, this is a program that is open to everyone. It is just, we have to be cautious about the students who have not been in dual language immersion before because of the rigor of the 2 languages in place. Great question. Go ahead. Yes, sorry.
One question.
Any other question? Okay.
You know what? That left me.
Well, we have a couple more slides. to get
Yeah,
to, so
okay,
we
okay.
can-
I have another question, if I'm gonna stall, see if it comes back to you.
Go ahead.
Do we sense that we will fill to that 57 capacity that we're projecting? Based on what we've heard from our current grade 5 and 5th grade families?
We are confident. We just had a forum last Monday. We did have, and Dr. Shagila will share with you, and we had also a meeting with the families at back to school night. They had lots of questions. We are going to share with you a survey that was completed by the families, and definitely we see the excitement. We also see the concerns or the going into a middle school environment. So but we are confident that we will have our 57 families moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Shagila is going, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I found out.
See, I helped.
See, thank you, yeah. All right, this is what I was wondering. When students enroll in a dual immersion elementary school, do we tell them like, this is a contract, you need to stay 4 or 5 years, you know, language acquisition, if you get good language instruction, 5 years to learn a second language?
Yes.
Do we tell them they have to like stay now 7 years? Is this like a must?
So
The middle school, is it a must?
well, this is something that we really want to encourage our families to continue the journey.
Mhm.
So when they start with us in kindergarten, we have a meeting with them where we have a commitment form. That commitment form states that, you know, we are going to share with you, this is a 6-year journey. That out of this is what we will promise to do. We are asking that you support us by doing the things that, that you would do at home, supporting, dual language and learning the 2 languages and that type of environment. That commitment form is signed, we keep it. We're going to bring that commitment night again to the students who are going to be moving into middle school. Why? Because we want to share with them, remember, this is a long-term commitment. When you came with us 6 years, now we're going to tell you, and we have shared already some of this information with them, with the purpose of letting them know that we want you to continue this. So far, we have received like positive feedback from them. But you're right, we have to, it's almost like, we want to encourage them, but obviously, this is a decision that the family is can make.
Well, when we first launched the DLI, Rafa and I did all the schools, the Grapevine, then Alamosa, and then Honolulu together, the very first meeting. Our play with them, in addition to a contract, because we knew that if you're gonna be successful in something, you have to commit to it, right? But was also the goal. And the goal is to seal it by literacy. And so every time we meet with them, we remind the parents the power and the importance of this pathway that ultimately leads to currency, frankly, in the world, which is the seal of biliteracy. It's a huge element that they can add to their graduation diploma. So I think that's the motivating factor for them. And we have to continue to remind them that they're on the pathway to gaining a seal of biliteracy.
Absolutely.
I just think, and so I feel that we should do both like a language school with like a dual magnet, because I feel that we might lose some students who want to have the experience at Vita or the experience of Vista Magnet. And then they're, they want something different at that point, whether it be design, engineering. So I really think that we should look at it as a dual magnet middle school so that they get both, the best of both worlds. This is my 2 cents. Trustee Vargas.
You're not very far off from where the community is.
Yeah.
Eric's gonna talk about that in a minute.
Okay. Any questions to this point?
I'm just.
Okay, all right.
All right. Eric, you ready to play?
Yeah, so Rafa teed us up that we've been meeting, that there's been several opportunities with the parents to connect. The first this year was at back to school night and standing room only. I actually had to stand outside the classroom because there was no room for me. Rafa and Myrna were doing the presentation. And then just this week, we held a parent forum. And with a lot of the information that Rafa just shared with you, to give the parents an update, we are on track. We are going. You can feel secure because at back to school night and with the lingering middle school decision, there was a sense of trepidation of what is happening. And so we ensured that we're communicating with them, and we provided them a survey a few weeks ago, a 1-question open-ended survey. And the reason for that methodology of an open-ended single question was there's 57 families, and we didn't want to lead them with any of our biases of what we may think that we would put down as options. We wanted to hear from them. And so everyone did it. And in fact, some people went back and did it again. They did it in English, but they also did it in Spanish, and Rafa went through and he was in real time translating so that I could keep up with the story and the narrative of what was happening with the families. Shout out to Myrna Hernandez, the principal, and their community liaison, because, with surveys, not everyone wants to do a survey, but they did calls and did reminders, and they ensured that we were hearing the voices of everybody. So Matt, you can go ahead and switch the slides. So what we found, and we presented this information to them. So the idea was we're going to give these 57 families a survey around their thoughts on what they want for this middle school. What do they want you to know before you make a decision regarding where the middle school is placed? And we took the opportunity at the parent forum on Monday to say back to them what we heard in the survey. And so we coded all the results. We came up with these 4 big aspects, and we went over these with the families, and we took time in the parent forum on Monday. There were 2 of them. One was in the morning. I wasn't there, but Rothman and Myrna did it, and the 3 of us did it in the afternoon, evening. And it was a full house. It was fantastic. And we said to them, this is what we heard. We're going to say it back to you before we talk to the school board. Is this accurate? And they said, yes, this is accurate. Then they have some add-on information that we'll share after we go through this. So the number one thing that they were concerned about is, as a group, now remember, not everybody necessarily agrees with what the majority is saying. The main number one concern is location. Can they get to it? Is there transportation? What if siblings already exist at a middle school and DLI winds up at another middle school? What do they choose? What do they do? So this is the common since back to school night and before concern around what is happening. Triangulation are my words. That's why I put it in quotes, but several people were referencing if we have a Grapevine and we have Alamosa and Honolulu, which don't have a geographical commonality, so to speak, what do we do? And so there's this wondering too, will Alamosa wind up driving where it is, or is it Honolulu, or is it us as the pioneers at Grapevine? Parents did specifically name Madison, Vita, and Vista Magnet in their surveys as places where they would like it for any number of reasons. The draws of the magnet for obvious reasons, but then also Madison with a lot of siblings and location. Yes, Julie.
Is it your sense that when they say Vita, they're referring to the current physical location of Vita?
Yep. Yeah, there was a lot of surprise when we brought up that Rancho Minerva was closing. They weren't aware of that.
Okay. So Vita meaning?
I would say geographic current Vita. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and that makes sense if you think about where Grapevine and Vita are located in proximity. The second big concern for them was staffing. They wanted to know that the teachers were going to be trained, that the teachers were going to be excited, and that whatever principal this program landed out in middle school was going to be supportive and helpful and ensure that their kids were going to have a great experience. They love their kids and they want to make sure that this program that they're invested in is actually going to work in middle school. Safety. This was really around the middle school experience. They wanted to make sure that whatever middle school they go to is safe and that they feel like their kids are not going to be bullied and they're not going to be picked on. And I think, and we said this out loud to the parents, these are issues and concerns that you have because you're not just a DLI parent, but a middle school parent. These are appropriate 5th grade parent concerns going to the big world of middle school. And then the last big bucket is access. And access not necessarily in the school, but they wanted the middle school experience for their kids. They want to do DLI, but they also want their kids to be able to participate in the great things about middle school, like choosing of their own choice, band, art, drama, whatever technology class, whatever it is that school has. And so those are our big aspects. We said it back to the parents. They agree that yes, these are what we were thinking. 2 parent comments did come up. And so we did promise them that we would share that here. They wanted to know if they didn't like your decision, how do they let you know that? And so we reminded them that tonight is not a decision-making time, but that the survey was an opportunity. We explained the poll card opportunity, told them they could talk to us and we could bring it to them. And also they could communicate through letter or email. And so that there are multiple ways that we're trying to get that information. And there was a second question also that's sort of alluding to sort of the geography of things. What if there was more than one DLI middle school? And what if I don't like the one that I'm supposed to go to? What are the options for going to the other one? Of course, year one, that may be more difficult than future years down the road. But it was something brought up that we said we would make sure that we shared.
It'd be like a strand when you have enough kids, but then
Yeah.
it. you
Being the
don't have
first
enough
one,
to
the
service.
strands are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
The first year.
Yeah, and so, and we talked through some of that. I'm not sure it made the person happy. She loves her kid, and there's an opinion that we didn't get to. She wasn't saying it out loud in front of everyone.
Dr. Bill, on that note, we have La Fuente and then the dual language institute as elementary, but not middle school, correct?
Yeah, we have, to my knowledge, in our district, we have no charter schools that have the middle school. So we have La Fuente, that's the elementary school.
You don't have K-8.
And not that I'm aware of, I can check into it.
That could be another goal.
Yeah.
Kids to.
So then we added just some heat maps just as reference. And so the first one, to make sure everyone's clear, grade 5 families, where do they live and what school are they zoned for? So if you remember from when we looked at heat maps last time together, the black lines indicate the current middle school boundaries. And then we labeled where the middle schools are in the map. And we have one of these for Alamosa. We also have it for Honolulu. And so you can see, especially when that sibling question was coming up around location, this is why. Because the majority of the families at Grapevine are zoned for Madison.
And already have kids.
And there's already some siblings up and but there's also siblings that are at Vita and Vista Magnet. And so I think that was some of the trepidation also. Yes, Rena.
So, and looking at these heat maps and, I'm looking at that, okay, so Madison is closest to Grapevine and Honolulu, given that we're not gonna have Groucho and Irving. However.
Vita is closest.
The Vita is closest.
Vita is closest.
Right, but Vita, we have other plans for Vita. I mean, I'm all for keeping Vita where it's at, you know, but and fixing it up, but that's me, but Vita is closest, and that would be awesome, but Vita's impacted, that's gonna be another bucket that we would have to give priority to go into Vita, so and actually Vista Magnet is closest to Honolulu, isn't it?
We have a heat map on that, so.
Yeah, I don't think we have the magnet schools
You didn't
located
have
on the
magnet
maps.
schools. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you
But-
wanted to point.
But I'm not done with my question, but when we get to Alamosa, it's Roosevelt.
Mhm.
And so I'm just wondering. Alamosa, since, well, actually Honolulu's furthest behind, I'm just wondering if it's possible to roll it out, have in the works to roll it out to both schools, is that even feasible? I'm just wondering if that would be feasible.
We believe based on staffing that it would be feasible.
Okay. Well, that was easy.
We do have heat maps though for each of the elementary schools that have the programs, that might be helpful.
Right, no, that's what I'm looking at, but I'm wondering, we were talking about the magnet schools too, if we were to put it into the magnet schools. Ideally, the magnet schools, both Vista Magnet and Vita, would be the most centrally located and would be most equitable for these 3 schools right now.
And just for clarification, current Vita address.
Current Olive. Yeah.
Yeah, on
Yeah,
all that.
so, current Vita address would be most equitable. You know,
Well,
that's.
I'm gonna dispute that because if a family's already taking a sibling to Madison and relive, Vita's not universally the most equitable. It might be the most centrally located in the district. But I think we're making leaping assumptions about equitable transportation because we don't know.
I was meaning what you said. That's
Vita is simply the closest
to all 3.
To Grapevine.
to Grapevine. To Grapevine.
Oh, Grapevine.
Mhm.
And farthest.
Because Alamosa is way out here.
Yeah.
I'm way
Alamosa is
back.
pretty
And
far.
Honolulu is way over here.
Yeah, but
We have a map on it, we can show you that.
well, Honolulu is gonna probably most likely, I would assume, and I'm not looking at this. I'm not an expert demographic, I know a little bit about demographics, but I would assume that Honolulu will be boundaried into Madison. I'm assuming that that's what's gonna happen, given that Rancho Minerva won't be doing it. So that kind of is a no-brainer, but I'm concerned about the kids at Alamosa. Because, you know, that could be like a half-hour drive for them.
Well, they're closest to Roosevelt.
Right, but I'm saying if it was at Madison, that could be like a half-hour drive for them each way, you know, and if they're taking public transportation, it could be more than that, and, you know, that eats into homework time, that eats into,
Well, you might need more than one.
that's what I'm saying.
Based
That's
on
why I was
geography.
asking, can we do both of them?
Well, again, the purpose of tonight is to level you up on what has been done so far. Well, our intentions is to bring back to the board an action item either in November or December. Where we will be giving you some options. We always leave, the final option of something we haven't thought about, right? But we'll give you some viable options. And one of those options likely will be multiple DLI programs. At multiple schools. At least that's what we're hearing, and that's what the data is showing. Now, how those multiple options play out, again, we'll bring those to you and give you some like scenarios of what possibly could happen. But we're not quite there yet, but that's what we anticipate.
And I just want to say on that note, that Dr. O was just saying, is that idea did come up in the parent forum at Grapevine. And you could see like shoulders go down a little bit. About that there might be more than one spot. Because I think they felt some security and I'm not gonna have to choose between trekking and.
One more question is, and I know that this presentation is mostly about the middle schools, but is there any plans to expand to more elementary schools?
Well, yeah, there's always thought about whether or not we could expand. There are a number of elementary schools in this district that would be good candidates to expand, and that is a future conversation the board can have. Rafa and I, as you know, are bilingual certified teachers, so that we're always gonna be interested in that. But that's ultimately a board decision. Yes, the answer is yes, there are many schools that would be good candidates for that. You know, and frankly, in a perfect world, all of our schools would have some kind of multilingual pathway, and that's really where the state of California is. That's why when we discovered this idea of perhaps having multiple middle schools with the DLI pathway, it really does make sense from the state of California's perspective, and I think from this board's perspective about this idea of the seal of literacy. So absolutely, it's a possibility we would bring it back. We have a lot on our plate right now. So once we get some of these complexities off our plate, Rafa and I would love to come back and talk with you about possible additional schools.
Yeah, and that would be specific to elementary
Yes.
schools, and right now this presentation is about middle school. And of course, the students are matriculating from Grapevine into the middle school, so,
And they're wondering about high school too.
yeah.
I mean, they are on, these are with it parents who are super excited, but anxious. So it's not just middle school, they're thinking like, where am I gonna go to high school then too?
Yeah.
You know, one other thing to consider, in my opinion, is where we have these students that are language brokers but aren't in a dual immersion program. Kids who can navigate both worlds and could just enter as a middle schooler into some of these classes. And then we increase kind of like the pipeline of biliterate students, therefore increasing outcomes because cognitively it shows the best outcomes for second language learners. So maybe that's something we consider is like, where do we have kids? I don't know how we measure that if they're not in a dual immersion program though.
Well,
You know,
I think you're onto something. That's what Robin meant when you said there could be multi. Yeah.
no, not always
Well,
because
not
some,
like fully reclassified, but like, you know, that. Pathway.
that's part of it, but some kids. They have a gift for language and they've never been given a code. But maybe grandma takes care of them or something like that. So, but, you know, we want to keep the classes at a certain threshold to be able to afford it, right? And we don't want matriculation or kids saying like, this is not my interest, I want to go do something else for my elective. And you'll have that, right? And it's not necessarily like middle school won't affect whether they're biliterate and bicultural and bilingual. It'll add to it. It's like the icing on the cake. but it's not necessary. So I think we have to think about where else can we pull new students in?
Yeah.
Right? The way you think of magnets being something that keeps it sustains the district financially and stuff. So as trustees, we look at the economic outcomes for our programs as well. So it's not just about money, but let's think about language brokers.
Yeah.
That's what we need to think about.
Well, I think that's what Rafa meant when he was talking, we're with you on that. I think what Rafa meant was there might be multiple entry points into our DLI program in the secondary setting. And it may not just be the students in the DLI program matriculating up. I think that's what you mean, and that there should be multiple ways for people to get in.
Absolutely.
We just want to make sure that when they do get in, that they're successful and it's not, the rigor isn't too much for them.
Right. Well, and I don't. It seems to me that a lot of families are reluctant to put that there's Spanish spoken in their language when they live in multi-generational homes. Because they don't want a label on their kid and they don't want them missing out certain electives. And so I feel like there's a percentage of students we can tap into.
What Spanish is taught in Vista Magnet?
Vista Magnet, I believe that they have a Spanish class in, yeah.
Hey, so the opportunity at Vista Magnet is one semester you take Spanish, one semester you take art, and then the next year you do the same thing.
Is it like a Spanish one? Is it like Spanish speakers?
It's Spanish for Spanish speakers.
Well, and also,
It's Spanish. There may be a Spanish for Spanish speakers.
Like el pato, la vaca, like.
Mi nombre es.
Yeah. I think it does end though. I just remember the
It's not
dialogue.
a full path.
We have to
It's
remember.
more of an
when it's
experience.
Spanish.
So, no, exactly. It's not a full pathway, no.
And it's to meet the IB requirement.
Yeah. Trustee Kelly?
my students both attended Vista Magnet. It's a very, for English, non-Spanish speaking students, it's a very elementary Spanish that when they got to high school, they just started with Spanish one. They were not, they could have tested out and gone up a level, but those children did not. And it was, I think, because it's a half-year program and sometimes there could be a whole year in between your Spanish experience, the way your schedule might work out with the art elective.
It is so dual language immersion, as you know, is a language acquisition option in the state of California. So for English language learners, no matter what grade level they come in, it is an option for families to choose whether it is structured English immersion or dual language immersion. Which means that for students who are entering our school system, let's say, for example, newcomers, let's say that we have newcomers coming to sixth grade next year. Would they be good candidates to enter a dual language immersion program? It's an option they have. As a district, that offers these two programs, we have an obligation to offer these programs to any English language learner who wants to learn, whether it is in a dual language immersion setting or structured English immersion setting. So that opens up another window of opportunities for families who want to continue their learning here in the United States with a primary language supporting, as well as learning English. So those are the many possibilities that we have as we open middle school, because we have now the opportunity to bring more students from that angle.
I'm just kind of, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that if we had students that were going into the dual language immersion program, they had to be coming from another dual language immersion program. That was my understanding. Are you talking just about primarily English speaking students that are going into DLI, or is it also the Spanish speaking students do they have, the Spanish speaking students also have to come from a DLI program in order to go into the DLI program?
Excellent question. So actually we have two ways to recruit our students into dual language immersion in middle school. One is obviously we want to continue to encourage our students who have started with us since kindergarten into the program, right? The second part is students who have been in charter programs in this district, and as we see, we don't have a continuation for them. So we want to recruit these students as well. The third component is for students who are interested in going into a dual language immersion program, and they have not been in dual language immersion programs before in elementary school. And they may have that interest. Those are going to be as well opportunities. But for those students who have missed 6 years of dual language immersion, we want to make sure that we have the right tools to make a good decision, so we can actually have a system of assessments that we can do for students who, to see, where they're at and how we can support. But definitely we want to have that, those two avenues, to have as many students as we have and they can succeed.
Those are the language brokers that President Alvarado was talking about.
Right, but now my concern about you're talking, and are you, I want to clarify what you mean by language brokers. You're talking about children that speak both English and Spanish in the home, they've grown up with it, but they're, like you were relaying your own experience about reading and writing. Is there a interim program that they could take maybe in a summer break or whatever to help with those skills of reading and writing in Spanish, or is there any plans for anything like that?
There's always opportunities, and as we get closer to opening in August of 2024, definitely we'll have opportunities to ensure that we have our students in the best place just to enter. So when we have that opportunity in ways that we're getting students enrolled in our program, we definitely will have to see what students will need at the extra level of support, and we will ensure that we have plans to reinforce that. We have offered dual language immersion summer school for the last 2-3 years. And so we have been able to do that. So we'll do the same thing for students who need that extra help.
Spanish is very phonetic. It's easy to like read and write. You need academic vocabulary. And then there's so it's easy to read and write, but then the tenses of the verbs, the conjugation is a little bit more sophisticated than in English. So I think it depends, like if the students are highly literate and they're L1, whether they can, continue the rigor, right? Like if they have a strong foundation, if say they come from Mexico and they have a strong foundation in their primary language, and they can, easily hop in and yeah, it just makes a big difference if they're strong in their L1, their first primary language. But I would venture to say that it's the academic language that might be the challenge for a kid trying to access content in the middle school in Espanol. Right?
Absolutely.
I think that also is coming from, I know that in the United States, when there are children that have been raised speaking both languages, typically in Spanish, they're speaking at the level of like a 5 or 6 year old, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of them. Well, if they've grown up and let's say they're in a home and they're the primary interpreter for the family, but then the family starts learning English and as it goes on. And then I know that I have friends that grew up in bilingual homes, and they say, I feel like I can speak the level of like a 6 or 7 year old.
No,
But
I
like,
respectfully disagree with that. That's
wouldn't feel
very, that
comfortable.
statement is very. First of all, it's a blanket statement.
Well, I'm just saying what I've heard from friends of mine.
Well, my experience as a second language learner, right, is I could go with my mom and navigate a mortgage and an arm and all that back and forth to my mom. And even though I had difficulty passing the writing portion of my BCLAD, I was negotiating real estate deals with my mom, translating, so I wouldn't say I was at level of 5 or 6 year old.
Did you speak any English in your home? Or
With
was
my
it also-
siblings?
I'm thinking that's a good one.
Yeah. Anyways, we're gonna, yeah, so. Academic, so we just have to get students that are gonna thrive in it and find a good criteria to decide if they're a good fit for it. Well, no, parents have choice. They could decide whether we say yes or no.
Absolutely.
Per the law.
Absolutely.
Actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of the options that we have in Vista Unifies for parents of English language learners, and they made a decision we have done that before, so parents of those students come in and they choose one of the programs, and we make sure that they succeed. Absolutely.
I think part of the idea too is once the middle school is decided,
how do we work with the school to make it as exciting and fun and some summer activities to make them feel included, like they really want to be there.
Any more questions? This slide?
I think that was the last slide, so I think we're
Okay.
good.
All right, well, thank you guys.
All
right. The last committee report is 10D, the Measure LL Facility Bond Micro Workshop. Thank you for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
All right, Dr. Lozier, take it away. This is fairly quick set of slides. Not to talk about it.
It is a fairly quick set of slides, but I'm going to be channeling my inner tackle. So I want to make sure I get my notes.
Here we go.
Thank you very much to the entire board for the opportunity. This is going to be a fairly fast-paced presentation. We're going to give you a quick overview of the financial upstate, what we do each month. Then we're going to go through an action item that you'll see later on the agenda. Grace will be presenting that. And then our architect, Mr. Steve Prince, is just going to be giving you a high-level overview just of some of the new renderings based upon the feedback that we've received regarding Beaubier Elementary School. We also have included in the Friday letter a video about Beaubier that's a fly-through video. We will not give you too many spoilers, and Steve doesn't like when we talk about this out loud because it is a copyright infringement. Yoda is somewhere in that video, and I'm happy to show you that along with his spacecraft, but on a separate meeting though. I want to say a special thank you to Rosemary Smithfield, who isn't with us this evening, for her continued dedicated service on the facilities committee. She has had every single meeting providing feedback and input, and asking completely deep relevant questions as to how we can always improve our facility design. So I wanted to take a moment out to thank trustee Smithfield for that service. On slide 2, just a quick high-level overview. There are no changes on this slide to rough order of magnitude or the budget. However, we do have some changes in terms of purchase orders of a commitment for Vista High School, which was increased by $500,000. In terms of actual increase on this financial report, rough actuals increased by, as anticipated, by $1.4 million. $1 million of that to Vista Magnet Middle School, $200,000 to Vista High School, $1,000 to Beaubier, and roughly, just in rounding up, $100,000 to PVC for their services and leadership of our projects. So that is reflective here and shared with you. Into looking ahead at action items, if we can have Grace just give us a high-level overview of as to the inspector of record contract modifications that you'll be seeing later. Grace, who is back from the cash conference and drove in specifically for this. So after this, if there are no questions, I've asked her to head home for the evening since she did 2 full days of conferencing driving back and forth.
This is important work, so it's important to get things done and keep things moving. So thank you so much. Right now, as you know, our RBVCTE project and our other projects that have extended in time, when you extend the time due to situations that have happened in the field, you have to increase the inspector of records cost as well, because that's the extension of time. So that's the action item that we're looking for later on at the board. And so this is something that we're also going to be negotiating the fiscal impact of the contractor, because the schedule overruns due to the board. I'm gonna hand it back to you, Dr. Lincoln.
Thank you kindly, Grace. We're going to go ahead at this time, bring up Steve Prince, our architect. I want to thank Steve for his service to our community and all of the feedback. He's with us at the meetings, meeting with staff, with students, our student ambassadors, which Dr. Doyle leads us through, including the swearing in ceremony for this year's student ambassadors.
They love that the most.
They do. What you're going to be looking at are not necessarily significant changes. These are changes in the rendering reflecting previous items. And we always present them here to the board, so you have them and the public has them before we publish them and bring them out online. So we're just going to ask Steve to walk us through some of that high-level overview of some of the changes and renderings that you're seeing based upon the feedback. Steve?
Great, thanks, Sean. Thank you, board, for allowing me to be here today. Some of the just high-level
changes to the rendering is that we actually show the actual configuration of the solar panels based on the actual technical calculations of what it takes to actually get there. You'll see the play fields configuration based on the last presentation we had. The kids were really excited about when we showed them the new courts is that all of that reflects their input. And when they saw the snake and all those kind of fun little, the monkey bars, that was a big thing for them. Make sure all those items were in there. The rendering now update based on the actual DSA submitted plans, which were submitted last month. Next slide. Same with the floor plans. Everything you've seen here is pretty much the same. We've made some minor adjustments on the second floor based on some input from staff, is that we now have a workroom with staff restrooms in the upper corner there, as well as a small collaboration classroom as well, filling in a kind of a high volume ceiling. Try to maximize the square footage as we can within the building envelope. Everything else has remained as we've seen. We're now working through the technical part of the drawings here. The renderings here are now also reflecting all of those little design nuances, and including the play fields. The exterior rendering, the fencing that you approved is now been updated in the renderings, as well as the exterior elevations that kind of illustrate as a whole. Next slide. And then we also have the interior spaces in the lower left-hand corner. You'll see now the reflective ceiling plan of the ceiling, and the multi-purpose building is a little bit more of a simpler approach. It's easier to maintain, but still also gives us all the acoustical and aesthetic qualities that we're looking for, as well as you'll see now a rendering of the interior of the library as well, and how that is. All the library is on mobile furniture, so it's going to be able to be a flexible space where it can do staff presentations and so forth, or it can stay as a library. All right.
And that was just, again, a high level overview of those rendering changes based upon board feedback, input from students, faculty, staff, and our trustee representative. There is a link for the video, which you have had access to, so the public can access it. I am happy to stay after to show you the location of said figure within the video. But beyond that, there are no substantive changes that go along with this. What we do have on our final slide is just sort of our overview item, which is there is nothing on consent this evening. We leave this for consistency's sake. There is a board action item within consent on the action items of the IOR for the contract modification. And at this time, we're prepared to take any board feedback based upon the presentation this evening or other observations.
Trustee Vargas?
Is it appropriate to talk about the roundabout at this time, Dr. Bill?
You could bring it up. So perhaps you can shed some light on when we would talk about that. Our team has had many conversations about the roundabout, and we feel pretty confident that that's a topic that we could talk about as we get closer to breaking ground, but maybe you can shed some light on that. Certainly. We did take the city's feedback in terms of placement of the driveway approaches if a roundabout was to take place. But in terms of actually doing any of the design work, that's actually what we call offsite work, and that falls under the responsibility of the city. And so the driveway approaches that we have on the plans right now reflect if a roundabout was to take place, they could, but we're gonna just maintain the same as though it's not gonna happen. So it provides, again, that flexibility that if something happens later on, it can be implemented at that time. Yeah, the status we're at right now with the city is we've communicated with the city and they've received that message that at this point in time, the district would prefer a three-way stop, not a roundabout. And so they've received that message and they're aware of it. And by the way, they've already submitted to the state a grant for funding for the roundabout. And we've piggybacked onto that. They actually needed a letter from us. So that's where we stand right now with communication, unless the board chooses to change to embrace the roundabout. The reason that we've given them the feedback that we would prefer to have a traditional stop sign there is because it would be more effective for buses to get in and get out of the site. Roundabouts for buses are difficult.
Especially with the cross pattern or cross traffic of bicycles as well.
Perfect, and then can you go to slide 4? Just go back more.
There we-
Can you talk about that slope between the two fields? Is that gonna be, that's still gonna be a downward?
Still
slope?
gonna be a slope, but we're gonna be re-landscaping it. We actually have a small retaining wall now at the base. That will also be a bench for the kids. It's hard to see in this, at this scale. But that's actually gonna help kind of keep any kind of erosion that would happen in the future, and it's all now. All of the underground stormwater is actually being captured, and it's actually gonna go along the east side of the property in its own bioretention basin.
Got it.
So we're removing all the water off the site and actually having it, the stormwater filtered in before it goes out.
And that still continues on through like the middle of that and the other space in between.
There's also a fence here.
There's a 6-foot high
so
chain
the
link
balls
fence.
don't go down the bank.
Right.
I'm just thinking of like garden space. It is, one of those things you can incorporate at the full grade level. But also like, like Leadership Academy is a perfect example, like anywhere you go, you see there lots of flowers.
Yeah, they use that.
I'm not sure, I would think it looks amazing, but if there's a way to think about it.
Absolutely. This space, space over here. Next to the building, and then over on the backside could potentially be utilized for garden space for students and teachers.
Perfect.
When you say garden space, are you talking about plots or are you talking about like raised beds?
Either or.
Yeah, different sites choose to do it in different ways.
Yes. And then my last question, well, actually two more, the marquee that we bought for Boogers, that's still gonna be there, or are we gonna get a new one? New.
Similar to the Savannah Middle.
Perfect. And then the last question, our neighbors down there that are in our property, what's the status of that?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Doyle for joining us. We actually went out and knocked on doors. We do have a community presentation coming up. We hand delivered, Grace was part of that, Dr. Doyle was part of that, I was part of that. We went door to door, speaking with neighbors, inviting them to a community presentation. There are some incidents of where we may need to have some deeper conversations. Those will be held privately with neighbors rather than in a public session to inform them of various items. There's really two specific area items that we'll be having conversations. One are on fences that are close to the construction and what may need to occur for fences. The other would be if anybody may have through the years accidentally incurred over the property line. So those are the two conversations that are very normal at this sort of.
There's only a few instances where there's some encroachment. But generally speaking, we think we're in good shape.
Yeah.
The neighborhood seems to be receptive of the information we're getting them. We have the meeting coming up soon with that. So we feel like we're in a good spot right now, but there are a couple instances where there's some encroachment where we will have to have, a delicate conversation with.
Got it. And my last question, Amy, I know I asked about electrical charging stations. I see a parking lot over here, 2 parking lots. Is that funding, could that be still used for these areas?
Actually, the design actually has, includes EV charging station.
Yeah.
Right over here.
You know how much?
In both, actually in both parking lots, they're actually.
Both parking lots, we can give you information on a Friday letter on 2 separate items. One is those that are included in there, but there's also expansion room and conduit left in the ground for future possibilities. So we can provide both those items to the board.
That's similar at Vista Magnet Middle as well. So
Yes.
any of our new construction would include that. It's a requirement.
It's a requirement by code.
And you said both lots have that.
Yes, we're required to do that for both lots.
Any more
Great
questions?
questions.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, actually, I do.
Okay.
Can we go back to, and this is a Dr. Loescher question and a board question. Slide 2. So it's the budget. I don't know how many of you got as many letters as I did from Rancho Buena Vista students. The weight room and the art room need an HVAC system, and I'm particularly concerned about the art room because they do ceramics there. And if they're having trouble with the temperature, then that tells me that there might be ventilation issues, which can cause health problems for our students.
Because that would not be on this one, because that's not, that wouldn't be a measure L.
We can't use natural health funds for that.
Well, I don't, that would have to be a separate conversation. These are existing projects. That's not an
Yeah,
existing project.
and there
Very
is a
important,
project list as well.
Yeah.
For Measure LL.
Okay,
And
So that would have to be
phases.
agendized.
okay.
In order to talk about, but we are going to do that. We intend to agendize that either in November or December, so that the board can talk about future projects. And that would be an example.
Yeah.
But it's not on this agenda, so we technically can't talk about it because it's not.
Yeah, so there's like how many, what is the project list? What do they called it? But there's like three
Yeah,
different lists.
phases.
Yeah, except we have
Phases.
phases.
Yeah, so.
But we hear you and we will bring that back.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Kelly?
Actually, I have no questions. How about that?
All right,
All right, I think that
ready?
we're done.
One comment. I watched the video. I loved it.
It is good. It is good. Thank you all.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. All right, these next,
Thank you, Grace.
the next item on the agenda is item 11, the consent calendar, agenda items 11 through 16. All matters
things that we don't necessarily know about, including possible transfer requests to other schools. It could impact staggering school start times and relocation logistics that we wouldn't know until we really get into a deep dive study on those items. Now, a second option that is not an uncommon option at all is called a temporary site. Now, a temporary site for the next slide would be if we are building up on top at Beaubier, it's to build and bring in relocatable classrooms and build down below a temporary school site out of relocatable classrooms. Now, there are some advantages of this. You're at the same location, there's no transportation impacts, and you maintain program consistency. Now, some challenges of this: first, high cost. You have to bring in and you have to procure those temporary classrooms. You also have to put in temporary utilities underground in order to maintain and support those facilities. And those are not utilities that you're keeping. Those are temporary utilities, and that cost is not recuperable. Now, temporary classrooms seem like a recuperable cost. However, experience tells us that most of those items are damaged in transportation and are not something that you always get to reuse over time. The challenges of this are high cost, construction safety, and implications. What do we mean by this? Students, particularly young students, are in close proximity to heavy construction. There are multiple impacts to learning and site events, including possibilities to impacts on student learning, events, traffic flow that are limited, and there's a limitation of what the site can do during those construction years. Additional factors are not all that different from what was presented before. Unintended consequences include things like delays of construction because of utility costs. Also, we're talking about literally a whole separate construction process that DSA could delay and could cause a further delay that would be beyond our control. Finally, it would be anticipated there would be a longer completion time, because rather than being able to construct all items at once, you have to construct one area, then move students in and construct a whole separate area. So it almost effectively adds a whole year of safety concerns and timelines to students. This would bring us to option 3. An interim housing option 3 is often called a swing site. A swing site is to temporarily move the entire site population from where it is, students and staff, to a vacated facility or one that is available without the purpose of holding them there for a long period of time, but just through the construction. Now, the advantages here: low cost, construction safety, construction completion within timelines, site culture is maintained, program continuity is maintained, normal school environments are maintained inside of that school site structure. The challenges, clear. Distance from the neighborhood could be an impact. That may have implications to transportation. And of course, we need to prepare that swing site a bit for that transfer. It's not without some challenges, but it's not actually something that's a huge ordeal. It's just something to be aware of as part of it. The additional factors included unintended consequences, such as the increase to transfer requests into other schools, which could be either temporary or permanent. You simply don't know till you engage. Possibility of having to stagger school start times in order to move students through a transportation system more effectively. And then looking at those relocation logistics and moving items that are there. So those are the 3 primary ones. And there's, of course, items we may not have heard of or thought of. And if we have other ideas, we're always happy to hear that. Now, we did issue an item that will be coming to you in a Friday letter, this Friday, which it will be tomorrow, hard to believe, in terms of information that we gathered from parents and from staff. And we won't go into depth tonight, but it was a simple survey issued by our site, both in English and in Spanish, for feedback. And we did actually get a very high response rate of about 40% of the total population. And in terms of what was desired from the community, whether it be staff or parents, is first of all, their number one thing was continuity and keeping the school community together. That was a number one concern from a cultural standpoint. That was what they were seeking. That was uniform. Number 2 was safety for students. and keeping safety at the core of everything. Now, when they look at these three options, and you'll see it in the survey, some parents have definitive feelings one way or another about possibly looking at whether they would move their student temporarily to one site or another. However, whether it be a temporary building site or a swing site location, those numbers are actually fairly in close proximity of the same number of parents, within about 5 percentage points. Looking there, and that number is right about sitting about a 20% range, of 20% of parents, no matter what decision the board would make, would be looking at that option. So that was the sort of uniform voice of the parents, again, keeping the school community together and keeping student safety as the primary concern.
Can you speak a little bit about, and this is obviously going to be your interpretation, but when parents cite safety as a priority, is that safety like, I don't want my child going to school in a construction zone kind of safety, or other factors?
That was the way it was framed within the survey, was tell us about your safety concerns around school construction.
Construction,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Questions, Trustee Morocco?
Yes, okay, so what is the time frame that we're looking at before we have to transfer these students? What is it like?
Construction starts July 1st.
Okay, so July 1st, so then it would be next year. So are there any of these three possibilities that would not work because of timing?
Well, if the board were to choose to engage in a discussion about an interim housing such as building on the lower field, that would have to go for DSA to tell us what their timeline would be. So that could possibly impact construction. DSA could share back that they felt like they could do things within 8 months or 9 months or 3 months. It is likely that that would be a discussion point, but that's point one. Point two is that there's a second implication that's very similar to our discussion about the transportation yard. When you're talking about dragging large amounts of electricity, SDG&E has to come into play. And SDG&E could say, yes, we're happy to accommodate that in the year 2026. Those are all options that would be on the table, and I can't speak accurately to that until such time that they would be able to weigh in.
I think it's safe, though, to inform the board that if we were to go with the interim housing option, which is option 2, it would be a dramatic delay to the project, like probably a year. Right?
My belief is
maybe more.
Yeah, my belief is it would be a year delay minimum in terms of start time, and then for construction time, my experience would tell me it is an additional year minimum for construction time.
So that's option 2. For me, I would say that's out. Option 3 seems to me, seems to be the most reasonable, given that we do have extra space. I'm just wondering, I understand the challenges for the distance from the neighborhood. I'm wondering if we would possibly be able to run a shuttle from Bovier to whichever, I mean, given that we're having the transportation issues that we're having, perhaps that would be.
Didn't we see a heat map recently that a lot of Bovier students are,
Bovier?
the Bovier students are like in the southern part of their boundary, meaning closer to Beaumont? Or am I thinking of a different
You're
heat
thinking
map?
of a different heat map. We
Okay.
haven't done the Bovier one.
No, there was
Let's see a Bovier heat map.
We should.
Yeah, we can.
But they're mostly clustered around Bovier.
There was a Beaumont heat map that
Yeah.
showed there's a number of Beaumont students that are very
Okay,
close.
so
Bovier students are right in the Bovier region. It's the
Okay.
most walking school of every school we have in the district. Almost everyone walks to school.
So yes, I think transportation is an important
But
consideration.
how far away is it from the big?
Bovier? About a mile and a half, 2 miles. When we pointed out during the transportation, all these things are interconnected. Everything we talked about tonight, that's why we wanted to do all of them tonight, because they're all interconnected. It more likely than not, from a transportation perspective, we would probably have a different start and end time. And if we have a different start and end time, then we could solve the transportation challenge.
So,
Because our drivers would be available, because we would have a different start. So I can't tell you exactly what that would look like. but that's
Right,
probably
right,
what we
but
do.
elementary has we have more wiggle room on
Yes,
start time with
yes,
elementary
yes.
than we do on secondary.
And would probably be earlier.
Mhm.
When you think about the logistics of it, because middle and high are later. So we could probably solve that by changing the start time temporarily for however many years they're on the swing site. It's just something to think about.
Which then gives the parents the priorities they have
Yes.
of keeping their school culture intact and not being on a construction zone.
But the reason I just kind of front load you with that is similar to many of the decisions that the board has made. In order for us to really act on it and dig into it, we need the board to make a decision. So once the board makes a decision, then we can iron all that out and say, we can tell you emphatically, we can make this and this happen.
We can always reverse the decision too. if, like,
Absolutely.
it's- Okay.
Absolutely.
I don't know, can we make a motion on this?
If this is an action item, so I'm gonna hand it back to the board president. We finished our presentation, so if you have any, it's ultimately the board president. Well, you can take it away.
if we decide on a swing site, are there possibilities of multiple sites? Meaning,
Yes.
As of right now,
And
as of right, I think that the answer would be, well, we could. But from a logistical perspective, Beaumont seems to be the obvious site because it's already prepared. To receive, students of that age.
what about the Vic? We don't have enough classrooms there. It
We
seems like
can't, we
it's-
cannot use the VIC. The VIC is not habitable for students at this
Okay.
point in time. That's why they're.
and Beaumont is dangerous.
Sure. So there are various locations across the district, but there are additional considerations that we have to take in from a facility standpoint. First of all, kindergarten TK students require specific areas and items for observation, supervision, toileting, and other items, which takes something like Rancho Minerva off the table without significant modifications. Second, we have other sites that may be vacated at this time, but have not been deemed habitable for students. That takes that off the item, off the table for a practical item to be completed. If we're looking at something like Beaumont's estimate as presented to the board is that it has 3 years of use left on its cycle with year one being next year. And that is on a countdown clock. There would be some work that would have to be temporarily done to Beaumont to look at various items. But the amount of investment in Beaumont would be a fraction of the cost of bringing in all new relocatables and putting in utilities. And that's the balancing act back and forth that would have to be considered.
And John, what's the current construction time frame right now? Like if everything goes according to plan, is it a year or is it a year and a half?
It's a full, well, it's a full 2 years before the school opens. So there is a timeline for construction and then commissioning. So it would be full 2 years for closure and then the reopening process to get students back on.
So if construction starts on July 1st, that would be July of 2024.
For the starting and then August 2026 for the opening of the new Bovier.
What happens in that what happens in that second year?
It's a 2-year construction.
2 year
So
2 years of building.
2-year construction that begins in the 24-25 school year and continues in the 25-26
Which means
school year.
26-27 is the
And then-
opening year.
But they can't start at the beginning of the facilities and then like open up a kindergarten program so that we don't, like we can at least take some families at the beginning. Like,
No, because it's still gonna be an
Yeah,
active
there's-
construction
It
zone.
would still be deemed under construction and you have to get state approval to open up the entire facility.
And what happens if there's a delay in the construction of Bovier and we have kids at Beaumont and we've given it, you're saying what it was literally the reason why Beaumont was voted was because it was literally 1 to 3.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna keep kids there for 3 years, that could have given us some more time. And I don't see that site lasting 3 years. There's sewage backups, there's lots of stuff going on.
And I just can't see putting those babies over there at that site. I don't, what would be involved in bringing the Vic up to snuff, up to,
Are you asking for my personal?
I'm
assessment?
asking for the idea of what needs to be done to the Vic. to bring
I don't even think we should try to answer that question. We can research it and bring it
Okay.
back. We are not in a position right now to give you an answer to that. It's a good question. And we can do it in the Friday letter, not tomorrow. But we need to get some professional advice. All I can tell you is at this point in time, the VIC is not habitable legally for students. The only students who are at the VIC are in two pods of classrooms that are preschool students, and both of those have been overhauled and inspected by the state to allow preschool students to be in it.
What about Crestview?
Chrissy's adult ed.
Right, but aren't most of those classes at night?
No, there's quite a few classes during the day. Most of them, yes, correct, are at night. But I'm not sure we would want to set up a multi-use facility with adults and young kids at the same time. That would not be a recommendation from us.
And haven't many of the classrooms been renovated to be like
Adult.
culinary program?
Yeah, all the classrooms have been adjusted to be adult,
So there would be significant cost.
dramatically.
Well, could we perhaps request? Perhaps we name these sites like Rancho Minerva. The
Wait,
Vic.
hold on. I'm gonna stop you right
Okay.
now. I want us to choose an option. And then we'll talk about naming sites.
Well, do we have to choose an option tonight?
Well,
Yes,
fine.
option 1, 2, or 3.
let's think through this. The reason the options are in front of you is because if we want to stay on the timeline for Bovier, we have to identify a site for us to prepare the logistics of moving students. So if we were to use a site as a swing site, then we need very quickly in the next couple of months, it doesn't have to happen tonight, but it would have to happen fairly quickly. We need to basically by January, start to prep to swing a site from one site to the other. So if the board wants to deliberate and take more time, you can, as long as the board's aware that then you would delay the Bovier project.
Make a motion to approve option 3.
Second,
Further discussion, trustee Vargas?
Yeah, I mean, like that community specifically needs a brand new school, and I think we have the plans of projects, and we have been moving this forward, so. I don't think we should wait on the Bovier project, we need to get it done, and sooner is better than later.
Okay, so I think that we're being too hasty on this. I think that before we make a decision as to whether we want to actually do the swing site, I think we should see what the options are. We don't want to get into this and then find out that, I mean, it sounds like we're stuck with Beaumont is what I'm feeling. Having gone through the school consolidation project, having seen that the district has agendas that it wants to get done, and it presents them in a way that we are sort of forced to do things. I would prefer to take some time and actually have more information before we make that decision, because we may find out that while that seems on prima facie that that's the best decision. I think that we might find that it's in the best interest of the kids to perhaps do a different option, but we don't know that because I think we still don't have enough information we have other sites. And I think we need to look at if we're gonna do, before we make the decision to do swing sites, let's see what it would cost to prepare all these different sites for doing that. I don't want us to be railroaded into going to Beaumont, knowing what I know about Beaumont, and then, fielding questions from students and families of, well, if you fixed it up for these Bovier kids, why couldn't you have fixed it up for us to stay there? And so I just don't think it's fair to just rush into this. I think we need to take the time. I would like more information. And that's.
I don't think we're gonna fix it up. What I heard Dr. Loescher saying is, we talked about the specific needs that are mandated by the state for TK and for kindergarten, and that already exists in the infrastructure, i.e. small toilets, bathrooms inside of the class. And what we've done, like we've been doing work on Beaumont before we had the master plan completed, and we found out how detrimental kind of the long-term outlook was on it. So, I mean, we've done things to it, and
As recently as this summer.
it's more, it's like, it's the bones. right? It's not like the facelift, it's the bones of the place, which have 3 years, so, I do think that at this point, it is in the best interest of our, construction plans for Bovier to move on and, go ahead and, I would be in favor of option 3 of swing site 3 in the context of not wanting to delay construction because it might cost us more.
Well,
And because it's important that we get this done for that very impacted community of Bovier that's in the heart of Vista. With a lot of kids there, so that's what I would say. Any further discussion from someone else?
I'll just share that I don't feel I'm being rushed into a decision. I thought that this would be the option for a long time, because when we were having our facilities workshops, we talked about the concept of a swing site, and there's only one site that's a functioning school that could be the swing. So I think this has been evaluated very carefully. I think it is a good way to, see Beaumont through its end of life. And that we have addressed that the school is the taxpayers, I should say, the bond was approved in 2017.
Or you can.
2018, we have an urgency to see through these bond projects, and I don't think it's responsible of us to delay any further, and knowing the cost of construction will increase, and these other options are unattractive to families and unattractive to the budgeting of how to manage the costs of the swing site.
All right,
But if I heard,
well, I'm gonna call for the vote.
if I heard Dr. Doyle correctly, though, we do have a month. We can do this next month, right? And it's not gonna delay full year.
I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor?
Am I gonna get my question answered?
What question? do you
The
want
question
answered?
was, am I understanding correctly that we have a month?
We can't, what I can't promise you is to get you a detailed rendering or a recommendation or rough order of magnitude for how much it would cost to retrofit an alternative site. In our school district, there might be 2 alternative locations, the Vic and Rancho Minerva. But it would be difficult in a month to pull off a realistic recommendation of how much money it would cost.
Well, I'm just wondering why everything is always in a rush with this process. Why wasn't this brought to us maybe to give us a little bit of breathing room to discuss options in case, we have issues like this where we want to take a breath, take a step back and maybe.
I think we have consensus to move forward, and I apologize, but I think we should call for the vote.
All right, all in favor of approving interim housing option 3, the swing site? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion carries 3-1. Next item is 17C. Approve the Vista Teachers Association Sunshine Proposal to the Vista Unified School District for negotiations with the successor agreement for the 2023-2024 school year.
So the district and the Vista Teachers Association are prepared to start our bargaining over our new successor agreement that actually will be retro to July 1, 2023. And so that requires two items. One was a public hearing, and now the second would be for the board to approve their sunshine VTA's sunshining proposals for the district.
I move that we approve the sunshine proposal, the sunshine proposal.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion, trustee Morocco?
No.
All right, all in favor of approving 17C, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 4-0. 17D, approve the Vista Unified School District Sunshine Proposal to the Vista Teachers Association for the negotiations of the successor agreement for the 2023-2024 school year.
And, go ahead. Do you want us to?
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we approve the USD sunshine proposal to VTA.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Morocco. Any further discussion, trustee Kelly?
No.
All right, any further discussion, anyone else? All in favor of approving 17D, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, 17E, approve the MOU between the Vista Unified School District and the Vista Teachers Association regarding Article 22 and the VTA VUSD contract.
So the district and the Vista Teachers Association bargaining teams did meet, and we did work collaboratively to actually go through the items that the district did notify VTA that we were eliminating from Article 22. And we did come up with our MOU that identifies items that technically we will now move district-wide instead of going through the SBDM. And so we're asking for the approval so that we can go ahead and start working on these items.
I make a motion that we approve the MOU regarding site-based decision-making.
A second.
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Morocco. Any further discussion, trustee Kelly?
No, thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor of approving 17E, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda, 17F, approve the side letter of agreement between the Vista Unified School District and the California School Employees Association as chapter regarding extending the transportation incentives for bus drivers and transportation assistants.
I move, oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I move that we approve the side letter agreement between CSEA and Vista Unified School District.
So moved.
I second.
Any further discussion, trustee Morocco?
No.
Anything else, guys?
Could I just add one thing? I just want
Yes.
to make sure to Rachel this, just for the record, explain why we need to redo this again, because I know there were some questions out in our organization about why don't they automatically get it? So let's just for the record, make sure that you explain that.
So we did enter into a 2-year MOU for contracting services, which is what we are doing for some of our special ed routes. And in that 2 years, we have guaranteed bus drivers and transportation assistants 8 hours. So that's for the full 2 years through the next June 2024. We only did the stipends 1 year because we weren't sure kind of where we would be at this point. And now that we've determined that we would like to continue this stipend, we're doing it for 1 more year. And so the entire MOU for the 8 hours, contracting services and the stipends would end on June 2024.
Just wanted that to be clear. There was some ambiguity out in our community.
So
Are we make, I think it was a motion a second.
Yeah.
isn't it?
just to clarify, so the bonus is
Was it seconded?
Yeah, it was.
yeah, it's trustee Morocco first, trustee Kelly second.
Okay.
And then I asked you guys if you had a question, no one did, but now I have a question. So the bonus is reduced from $5,000 to $3,250?
No, so it's $5,000 for a bus driver, $2,500 for a transportation assistant, and
Okay.
both of them are over 2 years.
Okay,
So a bus driver would get $2,500 their first month of employment, and then the start of next year, they would get another $2,500.
okay, so it's different based on the category, the job classification.
Yes, yes.
Got it.
And it
Took
is
a
an
while to register.
extension of the other MOU. That's why it's a side letter, because we're just pulling out that one piece and extending the one piece from the MOU that was 2 years.
All right. All in favor of approving 17F, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next is 17G, approve the variable term waiver request.
So earlier under consent items, we did approve the 2 employees that are listed here as special education teachers, but they do require a little bit more time to take the CBEST while they're on a limited term credential, while they're entering into a special education program, which they have entered into that agreement for that reimbursement as well. So we do require this waiver so they can have this year. They typically do it within a few months to pass that CBEST, which is your competency test.
Okay, okay.
All in, okay, wait, no. I need a motion to approve 17G and then we can have a discussion.
Okay. So
Second.
Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Questions about this? Trustee Morocco? Or-
no, I actually don't have any questions. I thought I did, and then I saw something here, so then it said it. So I'm good.
Trustee Kelly? I'm good. Trustee.
Good.
All in favor of approving 17G, say aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Rachel.
Next on the agenda is 17H, approve the resolution 24-06 of the Vista Unified School District declaring sufficient textbooks or instructional materials for each student.
Good evening. Earlier today, we had
This morning.
public hearing for this. And so this is a legal requirement we have from the state of California to say that we have the appropriate amount of textbooks for all of our students. Our team goes out and checks all of this within the first few weeks of school, and we can say that we have a sufficiency of materials.
Make a motion that we approve 18H,
17H.
17H.
A second.
Okay, moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Morocco. Any further discussion or questions?
I think I have questions. So this is just regarding textbooks, right? There's no other.
Just textbooks.
Okay, all right. Cool. Just one clarification.
All in favor of approving 17H, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 4-0. 17I, approve the first reading of the Uniform Complaint Procedures Board Policy. And that would be Amy.
I can go ahead. You go. It's just the first reading.
I know a lot about the uniform. We put this one up here. Normally, we would put the UCP under the consolidated motion, but because it's a uniform complaint, we just wanted to make sure.
Right.
All right.
That's what I thought we were doing.
If we have any questions on a uniform complaint, I can answer those.
Just a first reading, so you can choose to approve it, or you can choose for it to come back next month.
I say we should put it to come back next month for trustee Smithfield to also weigh in on it. And it's an important policy, because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions in our community on how to put in a formal complaint. And so, I mean, why not spend one more session on it?
Is there any time sensitivity for this? I'm not aware.
It is an FBM requirement that, I have to get it board approved, and I have to submit it to the state, but.
We can do it in November.
Quite one more month.
We'll do it in November.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's, and so the modifications that have been added did we do that because we got the template or the recommendations from CSBA?
Correct.
Yes.
That, and then, it's part of our FBM review.
It's a standard.
So it's a standard, and yearly we have to check it, and that's
Right.
for federal program monitoring.
Right,
There's nothing that we've added.
No.
This is all recommendations,
right,
like a typical board policy.
like a typical board policy. Yeah, I say we wait till November, so then that would be that I would move to postpone.
Sure.
Actually, so no one had a second on it,
So you just let it die.
so I just let it die. No one made a motion.
We'll just bring it back this month.
Okay. All righty, next on the agenda is 17J, approve the resolution 24-07 to piggyback on the central Susquehanna. That's a word I don't know. Susquehanna?
It's like it's an East Coast.
Wow, intermediate unit / HEPM cooperative awarded to Apple. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Is that a Marquette native?
I have no idea. Tell me more, Dr. Luker.
Yes.
All right, again, channeling my inner Shackelford to keep off her leg. The district utilizes a variety of piggyback contracts for technology and other items. This would be a standard item to go to the board to piggyback on an existing contract within the state that allow for the district to contract out and take advantages of those competitive prices that have already been approved. So this will allow for, in this case, for Apple products to be used based upon that agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that? Okay, as much as I don't like Apple products, I will move that we approve this.
Trustee Morocco, we can confer after the meeting.
Okay, right, girl. Yes,
All right.
that's right. If you're SPC people.
Moved by trustee Morocco,
Second.
seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 17J, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries 4-0. 17K is next. Approve the additional service request from Spro and
Sporadi,
Watson. Who say who?
Sporadi.
Sporadi and Watson Architects for water intrusion investigation at the gutter replacement project at Foothill Oak Elementary School.
Thank you very much to our board of trustees. Sprotty Wetson is one of our approved architects within our architecture pool, has been on this project for some time. You may recall, just for a brief background, we have had a gutter project specifically slated for Foothill Oak. That project began this summer. Upon looking at the project, it appears that it would be best executed as a multi-year project. Part of that was an initial investigation that has indicated there may be additional factors that need to be considered. This contract would allow for exploratory options through a specialized service and engineers that are licensed engineers to look at if there are additional considerations that for the purpose of cost efficiency, the board may want to consider at a future date before approving the second phase of this project.
Now I'm confused. So are you asking for approval of this proposal? Could you give us a little bit more information about what exactly it is?
They're going to be looking to see if water intrusion is occurring not just through the gutters, but through water coming through sides, slopes, and other items, and how it might or might not be entering classrooms. So this would be a item to prevent any sort of water intrusion into the classroom.
Is that an issue at that site?
Yes, it is an issue at the site. It was the genesis of the project for gutter replacement. Upon review, 5 classrooms were identified that do not appear to have that issue regarding a gutter issue, that it may be coming from somewhere else. Therefore, it was a recommendation of the architect and the project manager that additional explorations be conducted on those areas to make sure that we're doing our diligence.
I move that we approve item 17K.
Second. Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 17K, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. And 17L is next. Request for emergency waiver of competitive bidding requirements. Roosevelt Middle School.
Thank you very much. We do typically have bidding requirements that we have when in time that we have certain projects. However, when emergencies do occur, we can come for a resolution to waive those requirements. It does not mean that we have not did effectively or efficiently. It means that we have an eminent emergent item. In this case, we have had an incident at Roosevelt Middle School that the board has been updated on, and we do have a definitive need to move forward on a variety of services to bring the gym facilities back online, and this would allow for us to do that. Now, as far as the funding goes, we would be coming back to the board as we continue to work with our insurance company to discuss what the funding options are and reimbursement options. But our first priority is to get students back into classrooms and back into their environments. And that's why we've made the recommendation to the board to approve this item that will allow for us to expeditiously address this issue.
Okay, got a question. How old is Roosevelt?
Off the top of my head.
I want to say late 90s,
Yeah.
mid-90s.
So like 2024. So
Yeah.
would this be something that, is this like a construction defect or
No,
what
it
was?
was, had nothing to do with construction. Just give her a
This
brief,
is smoke damage and water damage to the facility.
caused by a light bulb.
That's right. That was the fire the other day. Oh, Lord. Okay, I see. Now I got a clear picture. All right. Anybody else have a question?
No, we need a motion.
I move that we approve item 17 as an I. L.
Second.
All right, moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any other questions? All in favor of approving 17L, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 4-0. Then
Thank you.
there's no continuation of presentation of public comments, so we don't have anything for 18. For 19, board business discussion. 19A, a request for future board agenda items.
RBV's HVAC system in the weight and the art room.
We were already in a plan to do it.
I know, but I got a formal request here, so.
Yeah, no problem. We absolutely will do that.
I have an item, which I don't know if it's, needs to be a full agenda or a Friday letter, something that we could address, but I was reading up on some articles recently. I understand the FAFSA form is in the process of being simplified, which is impacting counselors, like there is no application. It normally would have opened on October 1st, but it is not even available and not expected to be available until December. So I know that one of our measures is to make sure all students fill out the FAFSA. So I guess, do we need to think about resources for that shortened time frame?
We'll bring you an update on that. We could probably provide one tomorrow. And we'll give you more in depth next week, but we'll give you a quick update on what the current status is. So you all have the facts on that and what our goal is, to get everyone in. But yeah, our goal is to get 100% of the kids applying for FAFSA.
Yeah, thank you.
Trustee Vargas?
No request for reports.
I have a request. Is it possible to find out if it's to start like some type of internship program for like a lifeguard for our high school seniors? Can we find out if that's a viable option?
Yes.
All right. 19B,
I have one more. And this again might be like what Trustee Kelly said, or Vice President Kelly said, but it may be a Friday letter thing. But can we explore more about this social media and students? The connection there with, I mean, one of the things I did in Washington DC was I heard Hillary Clinton speak on loneliness, and she talked about the impact of social media on our students.
So mental health.
Yeah, mental health, yeah.
Yes.
and what I wanted would, it could be a Friday letter. Okay, it doesn't have to be a presentation, Friday letter.
We will take care of that.
All right, so 19B, any more, any reports on things you wanted to share? We shared earlier.
Talk about the press conference. They need to hear about the press conference.
Yeah.
There's a lot but
Yeah, there's a lot.
I mean, Blue Ribbon,
Blue Ribbon,
I think this weekend, because it was great to see the students in action and a phenomenal celebration from the community. We attended the press conference with Secretary Javier Becerra, and so with the National Latino Research Center, Cal San Marcos, to look at health disparities among Latino communities. So we're going to partner up with 2 schools in this unified, and definitely excited about that.
How much was that money, that grant?
315,000.
And that's gonna be like focused on the families in that part, those geographical
Yeah, 2
areas.
schools for
2
mental
schools.
health. Yeah.
Awesome.
In addition to that, got to welcome our student board members and this evening, but we have a great set and, future superintendent also in the making. So is that Ashley? No.
No, that's Sophia.
Sophia.
Sophia was, she actually interned for Chris and me over the summer. And her official title is deputy superintendent. And she let everyone know that. So she's a firecracker.
And then lastly,
Cipriano was part of the orientation. That's what he's referring to.
yeah, and then lastly, Vita's talent show. So congratulations on the performance, and they definitely packed that area.
Yeah,
Families were out in full force, and a lot of cameras taking pictures of all the talent students at Vita.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Are you guys okay, or do you want to add something to 17B?
Great.
Okay, all right, so 19A, reflections. I love that we celebrated Casita for their accomplishment. It is an incredible thing to be one of 2 schools in the county. So I'm so glad we were able to do that. It felt beautiful, it felt great. So, yeah, any other reflections?
Not a reflection, but I did remember something that, when I was at the DLI steering committee, there's no, like, we have a reclassification ceremonies for English learners, but there's nothing, since we're doing DLI, there's nothing for Spanish learners. That's kind of a similar thing. So Rafa was saying that it's kind of a state thing. So you have the connection to
Yeah, and
Senator.
I wonder,
It was a seal by literacy, but you're talking about.
they would all get the seal by literacy.
Yeah,
The reclassification ceremony, right, says that they no longer need like scaffolded support
Right.
in their class to access content. And that's a celebration because now they get more access to electives and A through G courses.
but maybe at the point, because I'm sure that a lot of students get proficiency in the DLI program before fifth, sixth grade. It might be nice to have a celebration of that,
Yeah.
you know, for students that are deemed proficient.
But I think Rafa's since left, but
Yes.
what we plan to do, and again, Rafa is taking the lead on this, is a celebration for the matriculating DLI first cohort
Yeah.
of fifth graders now, that will be sixth graders next year.
Right.
And so that was the original celebration they were planning, because those students will have completed the first phase of the pathway. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm saying that if we had certain benchmarks that
Right.
as soon as students hit them, that would be like, okay, then this student is considered like fluent.
There's a test, I think it's
Yeah.
called a TOESL or TO, what is that?
No, there are actually, there's an assessment we take. We actually just got the results back on that. So I'll get back to you on that. That's a
Yeah.
good feedback.
So it's basically when you're at the level of a native speaker, almost as a native speaker.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's a test for that.
They could pick up a book in Spanish or they could pick up a book in English and it would be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so seeing no more reflections, I think we're going to adjourn this meeting at 9:53.
Yes.
Very good.
Oh, man.